Of the Garden Grove City Council, and I believe we start directly with Housing Authority. Is that correct? Okay, I'll hand it over to Chair Kim Nguyen.
City Clerk, may I please have the roll?
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Klopfenstein.
Here.
Vice Chair Deidre Nguyen.
Here.
Chair Kim Nguyen.
Here.
Let the record show that Commissioner Beckles, Commissioner Breitigam, Commissioner O'Neill, and Commissioner Bowie are absent.
Thank you. Moving on along to consent items, we have two items: receive and file the Housing Authority status report and receive and file minutes from the meeting held on May 25th.
I'm sorry, but I don't think we have quorum for the Housing Authority. Housing Authority is 9 members, so we need 5 for quorum.
We do have a vacancy.
You tell me,
Yeah.
lawyer man. Should we?
Well, is there anything critical on there, or can we just continue?
Actually,
The budget?
why don't we continue and see if we get one more member later on?
Continue on till someone else shows up? Passing it back to the mayor?
Okay, so we'll convene the Garden Grove City Council, if I can find it.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen.
Here.
Councilmember Klopfenstein.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
Here.
Mayor Jones.
Here.
Let the record show that Council members Breitigam, O'Neill, and Bowie are absent.
All righty, thank you. May I ask Assistant City Manager Maria Stipe to give the invocation, and can I ask Councilmember Tuha Nguyen to lead us in the pledge?
Thank you. If I could ask everybody to please stand and prepare yourselves according to your faith. Dear Lord, we ask that you would be with us tonight. Bestow your blessings on our deliberations so that we may have the benefit of your wisdom and integrity. Help guide our city council as they seek to allocate resources and make the best decisions on behalf of our Garden Grove community. Amen.
Please put your hand over your heart, facing the flag, and repeat after me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty, thank you. That takes us on to presentations. We do have one presentation tonight, and it's a public safety update regarding the upcoming 4th of July holiday.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and City staff. I'm presenting the 2021 Public Safety Update for the 4th of July holiday. So every year, our Special Investigations Unit monitors social media platforms and other various avenues, chat rooms for illegal fireworks sales, and we've been pretty successful in doing so. This year we have 29 fireworks stands that have been approved for fireworks sales between July 1st and July 4th. OCFA personnel will be conducting inspections on July 1st between the hours of about 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Something a little different this year than last year. We did not have block parties last year due to COVID. The city has decided to allow block parties this year. This year, 15 block parties have been approved for July 4th. Each block party will be inspected on July 4th by 2 officers and a sergeant to ensure compliance, and they will be monitored throughout the evening. Block party permits cost $136.50, and I was told that this will cover the administrative cost for the permit and the cost of 2 police officers to inspect each permitted block party to ensure safety and compliance. Moving on to the firework enforcement. Aside from our regular personnel that will be on duty answering regular calls for service, that'll consist of about 18 officers and 3 sergeants. On top of that, we will have 2 sergeants and 24 officers dedicated to firework enforcement throughout the city. And then behind the scenes, we'll have 2 community service officers and 1 lieutenant working on administrative duties and booking process for the fireworks. So the discharge of safe and sane fireworks are permitted only on July 4th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. The discharge of and/or possession of illegal fireworks will result in a $1,000 citation. If you use illegal fireworks, you will get cited. We can and will issue multiple citations to parties that violate the municipal code. Discharging fireworks. Do not discharge fireworks in city parks or open spaces. City parks will be closing at 5 p.m. and the city sprinklers will be activated to prevent any ignition of grass and vegetation. So this year, our Community Services Division has done a pretty aggressive firework campaign through the uses of press releases, city website, through the police department and OCFA social media platforms. And there's more information that can be found on the hotline of 714-741-5270. Some of the other education, public education were used was park banners, over the street banners, social media, Channel 3 press releases, and the use of advisements in the water bill. Here's some, there's some of the various literature that was distributed. And there's the water copy of what the water bill looked like. And then these flyers are translated in Spanish, Vietnamese, and I believe Korean, and will be distributed at the fireworks stands. And I'm going to pass the presentation off to Eric Elmer from the Orange County Fire Authority.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, and community members. As far as safety tips go, we're requesting that people only discharge legal fireworks in the city of Garden Grove. Those are ones with the California State Fire Marshal seal on them. Fireworks should only be lit by adults over the age of 18. If children are going to light fireworks, they need to be supervised by an adult. We ask that everybody be cognizant of where they're lighting fireworks. Don't light fireworks near any combustible vegetation, near vehicles or other people. When fireworks have been discharged, they need to be soaked in a bucket or with a hose before they're discarded in a trash bin. And those trash bins need to be kept away from structures and other combustibles. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions or comments? All righty. Thanks a bunch for coming out and giving us kind of an overview. I hope it's a safe one and positive for the community this year. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us on to oral communications. I have several cards, starting with Tom Raber.
Hi, I'm Tom Raber. Save our children. Our schools are teaching our kids from 5 years on and up how to be gay, how to be a transgender, masturbation, anal sex. And this year, Newsom came out with human sacrifice and cannibalism. This is Sodom and Gomorrah. This jab is not approved for us to take. In fact, the animals that they used to test on died right away. The school districts will be giving your kids the jab without your permission. If you as parents did not want to get the jab and the school district gave your kids the jab, the government will take your kids away from you. They are also going to do puberty blockers on your kids without your permission as an adult. Disneyland. If you notice, the last couple weeks, there was a 5.2 earthquake. That is because the dumps, which stands for deep underground military bases, have been blown up. There's a tunnel that goes from Disneyland to Universal Studios to Nevada State Line to Aero 51. There's another tunnel that goes from Disneyland to Seal Beach, and another one that is for their cloning and bioweapons. Underneath the castle, they do satanic rituals, cloning, and the bioweapons. This is not a pandemic. This is a plandemic. The masks were there to bind you. The rules were there to keep you enslaved. There is no such thing as a virus. The people who are dying in China, Spain, and Italy, not because of the flu, it's because of the 5G, which puts out 60 hertz, which is kind of like being inside a microwave oven. Dr. Fossey, Dr. Bricks have been arrested for crimes against humanity. There's a Nuremberg 2021 trial happening as we speak. There's 1,000 attorneys and 10,000 doctors for crimes against humanity. If you think that Biden and Harris are in the government, they've been long gone. Biden has blue eyes. In fact, Harris is actually a guy. Obama and Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama is actually Mike Robinson, a guy. Obama is gay, and Obama is the grandson of Adolf Hitler.
Thank you. Nick Dibbs.
My name is Nicholas Dibbs. I'm a teacher, educator, longtime resident of Garden Grove, honors graduate of Pacifica High School. And I have to keep reminding myself why I come to these meetings, and I know why others typically come to these meetings, that is to help our city be a better city. And in that regard, I've been asking the mayor and the council to, if there's only 1 or 2 or 3 of us here, we should be allowed 5 minutes to speak. In addition to that, there are elderly people and others who can't be here in person for whatever reason. If the city and the council, the mayor want to encourage civic engagement and ways to improve our city and communities, we need to open up the process so that other people who maybe can't come down here or don't want to appear on camera can speak. At Garden Grove Unified School District Board meetings, we can record a 3-minute message before 3 o'clock on the school board days, and then that recording is played. I don't see why the city can't implement that. If our school district is doing it, why can't the city? So I'm asking the council and the mayor to establish a policy and not leave it up to one person's discretion of whether it's 3 minutes or 5 minutes, but say, okay, if it's 3 people or less or 4 people or less, you get 5 minutes. If it's more than 4 people, then everybody gets 3 minutes. That seems like a reasonable request, and it also seems reasonable and fair to ask again and again that you allow the citizens of Garden Grove to call in their comments if they can't appear in person. Now, let's move on. You're recognizing a lady at the end of the meeting by the name of Cindy Tran for leadership and community service. The citizens of Garden Grove need to be aware that there's an award called congressionalaward.org, where there's 6 different levels that students and young people can earn community service recognition. So go to congressionalaward.org. Last time I was here, I mentioned the importance of having a nonprofit parks foundation to help raise money to improve our parks and programs, like the city of Long Beach has been doing for 35 years. I'd like you to please agendize that, at least have the Parks Commission look into it. Regarding water, energy, the Water Energy and Education Alliance, they had a meeting this morning, and I'm part of that group, and MWD, Metropolitan Water District, Irvine Ranch Water District, and many water districts participate in that along with schools to what? Increase the CTE, career and technical education, because they recognize the importance that the workforce, skilled workforce is retiring, and we need to do something to train our young people. So one of the things they're encouraging is increase internships and apprentice programs. We have a water department here. Let's have some apprenticeships for students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brian Malley.
Hello, my name is Brian Malley. I'm a 16-year homeowner and taxpayer in Garden Grove. This is the first time I've ever addressed the council. I did catch you all on Zoom this last year. Good meetings. And I want to say one thing. In the 16 years that I've been a homeowner here, every measure, M2, extra money for the schools, I have voted for. And even though my wife and I do not have children. I believe in supporting the community. I'm here to talk about the ordinance presented for second reading, Ordinance 2924, which I think 16 years of paying taxes, I'm about $8,000 invested into this, about $500 a year for this 8% tax. With the city contracting with the Orange County Fire District for these services now. The proposed amount of $13,500,000, which I think there's a rollover of about $600,000 from last year, that comprises 47% of the fire and paramedic budget. So I don't want to take money away from the city, but I don't know how that is divvied up. I've never seen the contract with OCFD, but that's like $39,000 a day that is going toward paramedics. 47% of the $30 million that's scheduled for this year for OCFD contract. So I'm just curious contractually, how does that break down? That's almost 50% of what we pay for fire and paramedic services from OCFD. So it looks like it's kind of low-hanging fruit. You know, I was not a homeowner here at 74 or 78 when it passed by 60% margin. But I don't know. I think maybe we should. I don't want to take money from the city, but it also seems like an excessive amount. Now that, you know, it's, like I said, 47% of the 30-point-something million that will be paid to OCFD for fire and paramedic services. Anyway, my opinion, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That's all the cards I have. Anybody else wishing to speak under oral communications? Okay, seeing none, we'll close oral communications. We're going to actually recess over to conduct other legislative bodies' business. And so we'll go ahead and open the sanitary district meeting, which would normally be chaired by President Bowie or else Vice President O'Neill. And in the absence of both of them, I will go ahead and open the meeting and lead the meeting. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Here.
I'm sorry, Member Jones?
Here.
Member Klopfenstein?
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Here.
And let the record show that Member Breitigam and Vice President O'Neill and President Bowie are absent.
All right, we already did oral communication simultaneously with council. We'll go on to consent items, just receive and file the minutes. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Jones?
Yes?
Member Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Thank you. Okay, public hearing items, we do have 4, but we're going to continue 1, so we'll go on to 3A.
Item 3A is adoption of resolutions approving the biennial budget for fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-23, reappropriate project balances and encumbrances from fiscal year 2020-21, and setting the fiscal year 2021-22 appropriations limit. And Ms. Eifert and Ms. Song are here to give the report.
Good evening, members of the Garden Grove Sanitary District Board. I am happy to present to you the Sanitary District's biennial budget. The adoption of the biennial budget will allow the district to continue sewer operations and refuse administration, as well as continued planned sewer capital programs, continued manhole inspection and replacement, public education for fats, oils, and grease control, additional staff for compliance with new regulations, implement commercial organic waste programs, funding for street sweeping and bus shelter cleanup, and continue to monitor our landfill. The sanitary district sewer budget totals about $15.3 million for fiscal year 21-22 and $13.8 million in new funds for fiscal year 22-23. The chart here also includes about $4.4 million in prior year carryover to complete ongoing CIP projects. The budget is funded by operating revenue and a healthy working capital. For refuse operations, total budget is approximately $2.5 million for both years, with revenues of about $3.2 million. The proposed funding will allow Garden Grove Sanitary District to continue all sewer and refuse maintenance operations, capital improvement, and replacement programs to ensure compliance with environmental regulations. It is recommended that the Garden Grove Sanitary District Board conduct a public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the biennial budget for fiscal year 21-22 and fiscal year 22-23, adopt a resolution reappropriating project balances and encumbrances from fiscal year 2021, and adopt a resolution setting the fiscal year 21-22 appropriations limit. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ann. Colleagues, any questions on the budget? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing, so we're going to open the public hearing. I don't have any cards for this. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this particular item?
Mayor Jones, members of the council, citizens of Garden Grove, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. I'm a credentialed scientist, or science teacher and a scientist, and so I want to bring up the fact that this budget is important because it includes education, but I want to ask that the council or the city manager or the staff consider the concept that our wastewater treatment or wastewater systems are part of the water management of the county through the Orange County Sanitation District. We do face a upcoming shortage of skilled workers in both the potable water field as well as in the wastewater field. And the Water Energy Education Alliance of prominent water and wastewater agencies is recognizing that, and they are asking that our communities provide internship programs and apprentice programs. So in the budget for the education, if you can't do it this year, at least for next year, if you'll please allot some funding to have those that are 18 or older to be allowed internships and apprentice programs in our sanitation program, so that we can expose the young people to careers and career pathways in this field of wastewater and wastewater management, and as well as in the waste management of the trash. So in both areas, we should have some positions for young people over 18 to get this internship and apprentice type exposure. Orange County Sanitation District has a somewhat similar, has some sort of a training program, but that doesn't mean that at the local level, often they had to shut it down during COVID, but the local communities also need to participate and provide any internship and mentoring and apprentice programs or positions to expose young people to these career pathways. Because the time to recruit or to expose people to this, young people who can go on and get the skills and the training, is not when you need to hire people, it's you need to do it before. So that's my comment. Expand the education part of this for this budget or next budget to provide for that. Thank you for listening, Mayor, and the council members.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Council members.
Move to approve.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Thank you. 3B.
3B is adoption of a resolution to collect refuse collection and disposal service charges on tax roll for properties located in Improvement District Number 1. And Ms. Song is here to give the report.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. The item before you is a resolution calling for a public hearing to authorize refuse collection and disposal service charges for properties located within the Improvement District Number 1 to be collected on the county's property tax roll. Improvement District 1 was established in 1997 as part of the Orange County reorganization. As part of the reorg, the Garden Grove Sanitary District became a subsidiary of the City of Garden Grove. The properties located in the district were formerly in Midway City Sanitary District, and the refuse collection and disposal service charges were historically placed on the property owner's property tax bill. Per request from those property owners, the district is continuing this collection method. In order to do this, the board must annually conduct a public hearing and approve a report detailing the charges proposed for each parcel. Once approved, this report will be submitted to the county assessor's office, and the corresponding charges will then be placed on the owner's property tax bill. We recommend that the board conduct a public hearing, adopt the resolution and authorizing the collection of the tax roll of the disposal and refuse collection fees in Improvement District Number 1, and direct staff to file the necessary documentation with the county for collection of these fees on the property tax bill. And this concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Patricia. Colleagues, any questions? Okay, public hearing item. Anyone wishing to speak on this particular item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Secretary, can you please report on any protests received?
As of the close of the public hearing, the city clerk's office has received no protests regarding this assessment. There is not a majority protest.
All right, thank you. We'll close the public hearing. Colleagues,
Move to approve.
roll call vote, please.
Member Jones?
Yes?
Member Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Thank you. Okay, item 3C, we're requesting to be continued. Can I get a motion to continue this item to our meeting of July 27th, 2021?
A motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Jones?
Yes?
Member Klopfenstein? Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
All righty, thank you. 3D,
Item 3D is adoption of a resolution to collect sewer service fees on tax roll for properties located outside the city limits, and Ms. Song is here to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good evening, members of the board. This item is a resolution authorizing the collection of sewer service charges through the county's property tax roll for properties located outside the city limit and do not receive the city's water services. Typically, sewer service charges are included on the resident's water bill, since most of the properties served by the district also receive water services from the city. For properties in the areas outside the city limits that do not receive water services from us, we would need to place the sewer service charge on each parcel's property tax bill to allow efficient collection. The sewer service fees were established by the board through ordinance number 7 and 10 in 2005 and 2012 respectively. The fees were calculated to provide funds necessary to maintain and operate the district's sewer system, cover debt service requirement, and stay compliant with state and federal wastewater discharge regulations. The fees were established consistent among all residents and businesses receiving sewer services from the district. The county is requiring the district board to conduct a public hearing and approve the report detailing the service charges per parcel in order to place the charges on the property tax bill. We therefore recommend that the board conduct a public hearing, adopt the resolution and authorizing the collection of sewer service charges, and direct staff to file all the necessary documentations with the county to enable this action. That's all I have for this report. Thank you.
thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on 3D? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, would you like to report on any protests received?
As of the close of the public hearing, the city clerk's office has received no protests regarding this assessment. There is not a majority protest.
All righty, thank you. We'll close the public hearing. Colleagues,
Move to approve.
Second?
got that? Roll call vote.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Klopfenstein? Yes. Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Thank you. Items for consideration. Item 4A.
Item 4A is award a contract to Cordage Construction, Inc. for project number CP 1244000, construction of the sewer system rehabilitation plan Phase 1, sewer main replacement projects 2 and 3, and Mr. Murray is here to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tonight, we're asking to award a contract to Cordage Construction Incorporated for the construction of sewer rehabilitation work that is in an area roughly bounded by Beach to the west, Brookhurst to the east, Lamson to the north, and Trask to the south. In your staff report, there's a little location map for more clarification on that. In that area, per sewer and water, or sewer master plan, the condition of the pipe is generally considered poor and deteriorated. So that's the reason why we're doing this work. The work will consist of the construction of 12 linear feet of 6-inch diameter vitrified clay pipe, commonly known as VCP, 3,450 feet of 8-inch diameter VCP, 560 linear feet of 12-inch diameter VCP, 620 linear feet of 15-inch diameter VCP, and along with that, all of the apparent structures that are required, such as manholes, manhole modification, sewer lateral reconnections and reconstructions. And also included in that is the replacement of the crossing water lines that traverse on top with a stronger pipe. It'll either be a plastic or a ductile iron pipe that goes on top of the sewer lines. So this project received 9 bids. It was opened by the county clerk May 25th. And the lowest responsible bidder was Cordage Construction Incorporated with a total bid of almost $2 million. Should this project be awarded tonight, the contract can begin construction in July and should be complete in the spring of the following year, 2022. There is no impact to the general fund. This work will all be done using sewer funds. This concludes my staff report, and I'm available should you have any questions.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions? Okay. Colleagues, comments or a motion?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Jones?
Yes?
Member Klopfenstein? Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Thank you. Any matters from members? Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn to the successor agency now. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll for successor agency?
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Member
here.
Klopfenstein? Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
And Chair Jones?
Here.
And let the record show that Member Brightigam, O'Neill, and Vice Chair Bowie are absent.
Thank you. Okay, we already did oral communications. We'll move on to consent items, just receive and file. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Klopfenstein? Yes. Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
And Chair Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Okay, public hearings. We do have one item, 3A.
Item 3A is adoption of a resolution approving the successor agency's biennial budget for fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-23. And Ms. Eifert is here to give the report.
Good evening again. I am here now to present you the biennial budget for the successor agency to the Garden Grove Agency for Community Development. The biennial budget is based on the Recognized Obligation Payment Schedule, or ROPS, as approved by the Oversight Board and the California Department of Finance. Approval of the budget is required to fund the ROPS, which includes the development and disposition agreement for projects including the Brookhurst Triangle and Site B2. The fiscal year 21-22 budget for the successor agency is based on the enforceable obligations, again approved by the DOF, for the ROPS for the period of July 2021 through June 2022. For fiscal year 22-23, the budget was estimated based on the outstanding payment schedules of the enforceable obligations and will be amended in June 2022 in accordance with the ROPS approved by the DOF at that time. The successor agency receives all of its funding from the Redevelopment Property Tax Trust Fund pursuant to California law through the County Auditor Controller in an amount to cover the approved budgets. The budget is $19.6 million for fiscal year 21-22 and estimated at $19.9 million for fiscal year 22-23. It is recommended that the successor agency conduct a public hearing and adopt the attached resolution approving the successor agency's budget for fiscal year 21-22 and fiscal year 22-23. This concludes my presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Ann. Any questions? Okay, public hearing item. We'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on 3A? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Colleagues? Roll call vote, please.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Klopfenstein? Yes. Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
And Chair Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Thank you. Any matters from successor agency members? Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn back to City Council. So we'll reconvene back City Council. That takes us on to consent items. It's recommended that items 3A through 3J be acted on simultaneously unless anyone would like to pull an item. Do I have any requests to pull?
Move to
or-
approve.
Second it.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein? Yes. Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Chair Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
All righty, moving right along to public hearing items, 4A.
Item 4A is adoption of resolutions approving the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and the addendum to 2015 Urban Water Management Plan for Reduced Delta Reliance Reporting, and Mr. Murray is here to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, we were asking council to conduct a public hearing for the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan. In addition to that, we're asking that 3 resolutions be approved. One of them for the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan. There will also be another resolution for a separate document, which is the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. And finally, to adopt a resolution changing some of the verbiage in the 2015 Urban Water Management Plan, which speaks about reducing reliance on the San Joaquin River Delta water. The 2020 Urban Water Management Plan is required by the DWR for water agencies of our size and larger, mostly our size. And the purpose of it is to essentially establish our demand over the next 10 years and identify available water sources to meet that demand. The other plans, of course, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan is in case we have a drought, and identify several levels of response that we would take, and it's fairly much consistent with what we've already been through here recently. And all of these plans are, including the one change for the 2015 plan, are attached to your staff report for your reference. There will be no financial impact with this action, and that concludes my staff report. I'm available should you have any questions.
Thanks, Bill. Any questions? We'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on 4A? Go ahead.
Mayor Jones, members of the council, citizens of Garden Grove, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. I do have some items to bring up, and hopefully Mr. Murray can get back to you either tonight or another evening. But we live in earthquake country. The water management plan, or at least there should be a contingency for our city to make sure we have enough water buffaloes. I think we only have 1 or 2. In a city this size, I think we need to have more or have them available. So how are we going to get the water to the citizens if the infrastructure goes down due to a serious earthquake? And do we have enough water stored that we can have on hand in tanks and in water buffaloes, that if the power goes out or the wells go down, we have enough water to supply this city for 3 or 4 or 5 days of the citizens with drinking water? How would we do it? The city is spread out from east to west, north to south. We have to have enough contingency plans to implement. How are you going to deliver the water, particularly drinking water? We are in a drought, and if there is a serious, severe earthquake and systems are down, water lines are broken, the water quality goes down, because once the lines are broken, you can't, if you can boil the water, fine. If you can't, then you have to have other ways to get it. So that's one point. The second point is water conservation and water use efficiency. Our city needs to do more, perhaps more outreach as far as We are in a drought condition. Lake Mead is down about 50% or so or more, or anyway, it's low. And so we need to encourage people to reduce their waterings and so on, what's being done that way. Perhaps we could hire a part-time water use efficiency person either this year or next year. As far as groundwater protection, some of our city wells are under Orange County Water District's plan for dealing with the contamination issue on some of the wells. So how many wells are offline in the city? That should be addressed. That's probably in the report, but what are we going to do? How much is it going to cost to bring them back? Are we going to enter into any agreements for desalination? Hopefully we will through Orange County Water District. So there's a number of things that need to be looked at. I do believe that we are in a serious drought that can get worse, and we're going to have to do everything we can to encourage California-friendly plants and reduce our landscaping to drought-tolerant plants. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Colleagues, 4A.
Move to approve.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein? Yes. Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
And Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Thank you. Okay, 4B, GGT.
This is adoption of a resolution confirming the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District Advisory Board report and levying an assessment for fiscal year 2021-22. And Mr. Blodgett and Ms. Lee are here to give the report.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The item before you tonight is to adopt a resolution approving the annual report of the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District Advisory Board declaring intention to levy assessments for fiscal year 2021 through 2022 for the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District, based on the Advisory Board report and setting a public hearing thereon. Tonight, this is part 2 of the GGTID approvals. The city is required to set a public hearing of the levying of assessment for the GGTID and Advisory Board each year. The Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District was established by the Garden Grove City Council in accordance with the Parking and Business Improvement Area Law of 1989, California Streets and Highways Code Section 36500 et sec through the adoption of Resolution Number 9009-10 on August 24, 2010, and Ordinance Number 2782 on October 26, 2010. On February 22, 2011, the City Council approved an agreement with the Anaheim-Orange County Visitor and Convention Bureau, also known as Visit Anaheim, to fund collective tourism marketing efforts. The purpose of the GGTID is to provide revenue to defray the costs of advertising and marketing efforts designed to increase overnight stays, construction and maintenance of improvements, and other services, activities, and programs that promote and encourage tourism within the GGTID, which benefit the operators of hotels, paying assessments through the promotion of scenic, recreational, cultural, and other attractions. The budget before you today is estimated at $365,000 for the GGTPC for fiscal year 2021 through 2022. For Visit Anaheim, fiscal year 2021 through 2022 is estimated at $947,000. And just for historical reference, Garden Grove has a occupancy rate of 82% as a historical high, and the resort district to get back to post-COVID occupancy is estimated at around 2023. It is recommended that City Council conduct the public hearing, adopt the resolution confirming the GGTID Advisory Board report, and levying the assessment for the GGTID for fiscal year 2021 through 2022 if there is no protest, and staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Grace. Any questions? Public hearing. Yeah, so we will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on 4B?
Mayor Jones, members of the council, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. I'm a longtime resident of Garden Grove. I do have a question, and that is, I do think that marketing and promotion is very good to do to improve tourism and increase the occupancy rate and occupancy tax revenue. What I don't see in the PowerPoint presentation, I saw the cost, but what is the correlation regarding the over $1 million that's proposed to be spent, that amount of money that was spent last year or the year before versus the benefit? I assume somewhere along the way there's been a cost-benefit analysis of some sort. It would be nice for those of us who are laypersons and citizens to know what that relationship is. So even though it's not in the PowerPoint that we just saw, I'm sure it's in there somewhere, somebody has it. So I would encourage the council, the mayor and the council to make that information public so that we as citizens of Garden Grove see that, okay, we're spending a little over $1 million a year or whatever it is on the two component portions of this effort, but what is the benefit? The correlated benefit, and it isn't always easy to necessarily determine it exactly, but to have some comparison that if we don't spend this money, what would we be looking at as an estimate versus if we did spend it? And perhaps that could be, anyway, that's my question. And I do think in general that it's good that we do have a promotion of visitor and convention people coming for conferences and so on. I think that marketing is essential. We are competing against Long Beach and other cities. With Disneyland reopening, hopefully, and Knott's Berry Farm reopening, hopefully we will increase our hotel occupancy. But let's have something about the benefits of, since this has been done for 10 years, I suppose we could compare it to before this effort began. And I'm assuming that all of you are already aware somewhere along the way that if we don't do this, then it will not provide as many benefits. So if staff, at least in this report or next year, can kind of do something for the average person to see that by spending this money, we're able to increase more visitors and so on. And you can't always quantify it, but whatever the results and outcomes are from previous years, it would be helpful to know for going forward when you're asked to approve something over $1 million. Thank you for listening.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you like to report on any protests received?
As of the close of the public hearing, the city clerk's office has received no protests regarding this assessment. There is not a majority protest.
Thank you. Colleagues, motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein? Yes. Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
And Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 4 yes votes.
Thank you. Item 4C.
Item 4C is adoption of resolutions approving the biennial budget for fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-23. And Ms. Eifert and Ms. Song are here to give the report.
And Madam Clerk, I believe the City Manager Stiles would like to have some opening remarks regarding this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We are going to take the next several minutes going over all of the budget items in detail for all of you and for the public today. So thank you, Mayor and members of council. I want to thank you also for taking the time to do a deep dive into the city administration's proposed budget recommendations during our study session a couple weeks ago on June 3rd. Your feedback to us at that time has been very helpful. So I would like to begin tonight by making some overall remarks about the budget prior to the presentation itself. And with me today for this presentation are Patricia Song, our Finance Director, and Ann Eifert, our Budget Manager. Of course, our Assistant City Managers and Deputy Directors are also here to answer any operational questions that might come up for you. The staff and I are pleased to present the proposed biennial budget to you for fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-23. The total all-funds budget is $337.3 million for fiscal year 21-22 and $302.7 million for fiscal year 22-23. The general fund operating budget is $141.1 million for fiscal year 21-22 and $145.6 million for fiscal year 22-23. This is a balanced budget, meaning that the projected expenditures do not exceed projected revenue, and no one-time internal service fund dollars are being used to balance the budget. However, the budget also includes one-time American Rescue Plan revenue that we will have to carefully consider allocating for future long-term financial stability. When we approved our last biennial budget in June 2019, little did we know that the global COVID pandemic was looming on the horizon. Garden Grove was not spared from the devastation to come. In addition to the immeasurable human cost, the city lost more than $28 million in hotel tourism revenue over the past 18 months, with more than $10 million in losses expected during this upcoming biennial. Our police department alone was required to allocate millions of dollars in resources to continue to provide services. In most cases, we were forced to hunker down and take smart precautions, such as implementing a hiring freeze, placing job recruitments on hold, suspending non-essential travel and training, deferring non-essential equipment and capital purchases, reassessing personnel equipment needs, and eliminating low-value tasks and reassessing business processes. Thankfully, the desperately needed infusion of more than $48 million in American Rescue Plan funding over the next 2 years will give us a fighting chance to protect precious reserves, rebuild critical services, and plan for facility and infrastructure improvements. While we don't quite have all the final guidance from the Treasury Department on how these funds can be spent, we're hopeful that critical services and projects can be restored. You will note that the material we are presenting tonight is comprehensive and includes a number of graphical depictions of the budget that we believe will make it easier for the public to understand this complex subject matter. And attached for your review is the proposed budget book, the budget in brief, as well as a one-page budget summary, all of which I think has already been downloaded on our website with additional information that'll be added tonight or tomorrow morning. We have worked diligently to keep this biennial budget faithful to the community vision and guiding principles. As a reminder, the vision of Garden Grove is to be a safe, attractive, and economically vibrant city with an informed and involved public. We are a diverse community that promotes our unique attributes and preserves our residential character. Our guiding principles say that we commit ourselves to the betterment of the individual, the organization, and the community by fostering a spirit of trust, creativity, cooperation, integrity, empathy, respect, and quality service to all. So let me talk a bit about some of the budget highlights and challenges. This budget reflects our commitment to the 4 priority areas that you've asked us to remain focused on. Those include balancing the budget and maintaining critical reserves. Number 2, infrastructure. 3, public safety and facility improvements. And 4, quality of life enhancements. More than any other department, Public Works has been hit with significant funding and staffing cuts due to the revenue losses caused by COVID. This biennial budget recommends relief in the following ways. $17.5 million in funding for an infrastructure-based pavement management acceleration plan for our streets. And we paid critical attention when we presented the pavement management program to all of the wishes of the council to be focused on doing what we could to provide increased maintenance and repair of our streets in Garden Grove. And so this takes a significant step to providing those services. We're adding restoration of 9 service positions that were previously defunded in Public Works, which is more than half of the 17 restored positions included in this budget. There's $137,000 in new funding for graffiti abatement services, additional funding for street sign replacement, $430,000 for trees, medians, and traffic signal maintenance from the general fund. And I think, as I mentioned in the study session, those were funds originally taken out of our gas tax revenue. So those additional resources will allow Public Works to provide even additional services that they might have otherwise had to spend. And a number of capital projects that will be outlined later in the presentation. In addition, we have kept our commitment to public safety when Measure O was passed in November 2018. We rebuilt GGPD with added staffing, equipment, and new technology. One national study recently ranked Garden Grove as one of the safest communities in California. That public safety commitment continues in this biennial budget, specifically to include funding for a major mental health response partnership with the Community and Economic Development Department, GGPD, and Be Well OC. Major initial funding to rebuild a Garden Grove Police Department police facility that is outdated and does not meet seismic building standards. 2 additional GGPD school resource officer positions funded in partnership with the Garden Grove Unified School District. Replacement of outdated equipment, increased funding for training, and mandated increases for crime prevention partnerships are also included. And continued funding for our partnership with the Orange County Fire Authority that includes response for fire EMS service with 4-person staffing, including 2 paramedics on every apparatus vehicle. We have also been able to include a number of other non-public works and public safety core services. Some are increases for state and county mandates, but additional initiatives include $3.6 million for park maintenance, sanitary district funding for organic waste and street sweeping, $217,000 in IT reinvestment, continued funding for buying Garden Grove and open streets initiatives, 17 newly restored positions as previously mentioned, and we'll provide specifics on those positions later on in our presentation. Funding to meet all of our pension and labor contract obligations, creation of a new full-time code enforcement officer position, full funding for our housing authority and continued human services and homeless support services, and a full complement of street, stormwater, water, and sewer projects and upgrades that will be mentioned later. Before wrapping up, I want to make just a couple of additional points. I have greatly appreciated the work of our finance team in the creation of an infrastructure funding policy that will be discussed later this evening. That follows up on the pension stabilization and reserve fund policies the council approved last year. As you have seen at the study session, the infrastructure policy includes plans for capital replacement reserves, infrastructure, and asset management. And later this year, you will start to see some of the City Hall first floor design, security improvements get underway, which had been delayed due to COVID. Finally, I want to thank the staff, Patricia and Ann, for all their hard work. Also Janet Chung in Finance, Mina Yu in the City Manager's Office, and Anna Gould and Katrina Schultz in IT Graphics, who were instrumental in helping to prepare all the material for you this evening. And for transparency purposes, my remarks tonight will be included on our website tomorrow, along with all of the other budgeted documents. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Patricia and Ann.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. First of all, I want to thank you, the City Council and our City Manager, for your guidance and support in the development of this year's biannual budget. Without it, it would not be possible for us to deliver the budget to you tonight. So the biggest difference in this biannual budget is the inclusion of the $48 million American Rescue Plan Act money. In May, we received half of the allocation, or $24 million. Due to the timing and some uncertainties on the eligible uses, we were not able to program these funds in the current fiscal year. So they are being carried over to the next fiscal year and included in this biannual budget that we are presenting to you tonight. These funds will be used to help with COVID recovery and balance our budget. It also enables us to start programming some of our infrastructure projects and facility improvements, such as the police headquarters, as well as the various quality of life enhancement for the community, as Scott just mentioned. The next 3 slides will provide a high-level overview of these 4 categories that is presented on the lower right-hand corner of the slide. Okay, the first category of the proposed uses of the additional funding enabled by the American Rescue Plan Act is on COVID recovery and budget balancing. The chart on this slide is an illustration of the 3 fiscal years based on the information we currently have. The current year, we estimate a surplus of $21 million due to the inclusion of the CARES Act money of $2.2 million and half of the ARPA funds that we have received so far. As mentioned earlier, this money was not programmed this year, and accordingly, it is being rolled into the next fiscal year. As you can see here, we are able to achieve a balanced budget. Ms. Eifert will go into a lot more detail in a little bit on the budget estimates and appropriations for the next 2 years. I would like to share some of the highlights in this proposed budget that are related to our efforts on COVID recovery. Specifically, we restored the positions that we defunded in the current year. If you recall, last year this time, we anticipated a $10 million deficit in the current year due to the pandemic, and one of the balancing measures we implemented was to defund 22 positions. We're happy to report that we brought back 17 of these positions in this budget cycle, and the remainder were either augmented by contractual services or it's being combined or upgraded as part of the departmental reorganizations. Many of our departments took this opportunity to evaluate their current structure and processes and identified alternatives to meet operational goals in a more efficient and effective manner. During the budget study session, Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen asked staff to provide a detailed breakdown of the positions being restored and the ones being replaced or augmented. Ms. Eifert will be presenting this information shortly. Additionally, with the infusion of the federal funds, we were able to resume funding for many deferred maintenance needs and capital replacement projects. Another key component included in this biennial budget is in the introduction of a citywide infrastructure funding policy, as Scott just mentioned. I will provide you with a full report on this policy later tonight. Very briefly, the infrastructure has been the top priority for the City Council for many, many years. With the influx of federal money, we wanted to take this opportunity to establish a framework to set policy standards and provide directions on action plans. The infrastructure funding policy is the framework supported by 3 important fiscal and asset planning and management practices. The proposed policy also calls out 10 actionable items listed on the slide here. And again, I will be presenting the detailed report on this policy in a little bit. So the last 2 categories on the proposed uses of the additional funding enabled by the ARPA money are public safety and quality of life. The diagram here highlights a few elements that we have included in our proposed budget, such as enhancing graffiti abatement contract, providing mental health services through BYOC. Additional funding was also slated for tree, median, and traffic signal maintenance, traffic and parking enforcement, signage replacement, and application of technology in plan check. Significant capital investment are also planned in the proposed CIP budget, including the Pavement Management Acceleration Program and the Public Facility Infrastructure Improvement Program. Next, Ms. Ann Eifert, our budget manager, will walk you through our proposed biennial budget.
Thank you, Ms. Song. Good evening once again. I'm here tonight to present and seek your approval for the adoption of our biennial budget. The information is similar to what was presented to you at the study session a couple of weeks ago on June 3rd. With that, I'd like to start off by providing a financial overview of our current fiscal year. So much has gone on this past year, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to review the budget that was adopted around this time last year. As you know, California's stay-at-home order started in March 2020, and the pandemic and the sudden closures of not only our local businesses, but that of Disneyland and the surrounding hotels such as Great Wolf required staff to make amendments to the fiscal year 2021 budget at that time. The city has lost a total of $28 million in hotel taxes since the beginning of the pandemic. As a result, various cuts were made. As Patricia mentioned earlier, 22 general fund positions were defunded. We decreased contributions to the city's internal fleet fund. We reduced travel, training, conferences, reductions in part-time staff and recreation programs, and at that time we anticipated a $10.5 million deficit. The deficit required a commitment to use $10.5 million in one-time sources to bridge the deficit gap. It was anticipated that we would use some money in our current reserves. Our fleet fund, fiscal year 1920, ended up with a surplus of about $3.2 million, which we were going to carry over, and then an unreserved fund balance of $4.3 to make up that $10.5 million deficit. So again, that was at the beginning of fiscal year 2021, and as the year has passed, we have good news and bad news when it comes to our revenues. And the good news, again, is with sales tax. Sales tax remained very strong and exceeded all expectations. Measure O and Bradley Burns sales tax brought in a combined $4.7 million over estimates provided by our consultants. Another great pattern that the city is seeing is that with the dissolving of the redevelopment agency, the city is seeing additional property taxes. Property taxes came in at about $4 million over estimates. Home improvement is still very active, bringing in about $1.3 million for building permits and fees. Interest earnings was also strong, bringing in an additional $1.4 million above estimates. We did have some help from the federal and state government with the CARES Act, which provided $2.1 million in funding relief to the city for costs associated with responding to the pandemic, and of course, most recently, the American Rescue Plan Act, which Finance Director Song mentioned earlier, of $24 million. So with that, we also had bad news. TOT in fiscal year 18-19, again, just 2 fiscal years ago, the city saw its highest TOT revenue totaling $26.3 million. Staff projected the loss of TOT would be about 60%. However, as we are all aware, the situation indeed got worse and the stay-at-home orders remained. Great Wolf remained closed, as well as Disneyland, for longer than what we had hoped. And then, of course, social distancing measures meant no large gatherings, which of course impacted hotel conferences, meetings, weddings, etc. Our hotel taxes took a very large hit, providing just a little over $5 million versus the $10.5 million that was projected. But again, we were lucky that the good news did make up for the bad news in TOT. In summary, budgeted revenues was approximately $119.7 million, and with the inclusion of the $24 million in American Rescue Plan funds that we recently received, we are anticipating ending the year with $151.6 million in revenue. Our expenditures are estimated to come in as budgeted, resulting in a surplus of $21.4 million. Of note, however, without the $24 million from the American Rescue Plan and the $2.1 million from the CARES Act, we would be seeing a $4.7 million deficit. So with that, I'd like to move on to our biennial budget for the next 2 fiscal years. The budget was developed, again, as City Manager Stiles and Finance Director Song mentioned. We developed this in accordance with City Council priorities. And again, the priorities included a COVID recovery and balanced budget to maintain city services, support businesses, and protect our reserves, public safety, maintain staffing, crime reduction, and facility improvement, quality of life priorities, including graffiti abatement, trash, code enforcement, homelessness, parking, and signage, and of course, infrastructure for our streets and a long-term funding plan. The first slide here is a citywide budget at a glance. This includes all appropriations for all funds, including capital improvement within the city. These areas include general government services, which includes the general fund, the Housing Authority, successor agency, all grants, special assignments, which comprise of the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District, Street Lighting District, and Park Maintenance Districts, as well as the Garden Grove Sanitary District and Water Utility. Total revenue estimated for fiscal year 21-22 is $311.3 million. On the expense side, which general government accounts for about 57% of the expenses, you'll also notice that the general government expenses are higher than our revenues, but this is because of the American Rescue Plan funds that came in this past May, which again we mentioned would be carried over. The surplus will be achieved. The surplus that will be achieved will be used as beginning balance for fiscal year 21-22, and then we list all the other components here. But I'll go into a little bit more detail for these areas later in the presentation. For fiscal year 22-23 revenue, we anticipate $303.6 million. And I notice here in our PowerPoint, I believe it printed correctly, but it's not showing some of the numbers up on the screen. But again, there is less capital improvement planned for fiscal year 22-23, bringing the expenses down to $302.7 million. Although we adopt a 2-year budget, confirmation of certain funding availability is not yet finalized, so staff will present to council any necessary budget adjustments for your review during the mid-cycle budget review next June. Next, I wanted to go through our authorized position. The citywide budgets do include the funding of 555 authorized full-time positions. As was mentioned earlier, due to budget cuts, the current year saw the defunding of 22 positions. As a council priority to maintain staffing and service levels, this biennial budget proposes to bring back 17 of these positions. All departments analyzed staffing levels, and some reorganizations were made to achieve long-term labor savings by reducing the number of positions without sacrificing service levels. So the next few slides here outlines the changes and restoration of the 17 positions which was requested during the study session. So for our Community and Economic Development Department, we do, in this budget, add a full-time code enforcement officer and restore the position of a senior planner. For the Police Department, a vacant senior CSO position was converted to enhance the traffic enforcement program. The Police Department is also restoring 2 record specialists positions. For the Information Technology Department, they elected to take 2 positions, one reprographics operator and one admin aide, and converting it to a higher level senior administrative analyst. For the Finance Department, there are 2 currently vacant account specialist positions that will be combined into one accounting tech to provide more complex analytical financial reports. And then as part of the restoration of the positions, we, for finance, will be bringing back a principal analyst, a division manager, an office assistant, and a senior accountant. For Public Works, as the city manager mentioned, they had 10 positions defunded. And so we're happy that a lot of these positions are being brought back. For first off, a maintenance repair worker will be converted into contractual services for the HVAC duties. Then a senior project planner, which had been a position that was vacant for years now, is going to be converted to a senior analyst for the environmental compliance division, specifically for refuse and doing some of those new government regulatory activities. And then as part of the restoration of positions, 2 public works foreman positions, 1 in facilities and 1 in parks, 1 park maintenance worker, 1 heavy equipment operator in streets, 2 senior street maintenance workers, a senior program specialist for the right-of-way division, and an associate engineering position. For the Human Resources Department, they'll be restoring a personnel analyst to assist with recruitment efforts. In the city manager's office, a restored principal office assistant in the city clerk's office. And below here, we have 2 kind of sort of cleanup items. There's these 2 positions that, one in the Community and Economic Development Department that was previously funded by the successor agency. And then another senior admin aide in the HR department that was previously funded by sewer. So since they're not general fund positions, we'll go ahead and clean up our position list at this time, and when the positions are requested to come back, then we'll be coming forward to ask for that approval. So moving on, I want to now focus on the general fund. General fund revenue is $155 million. Of this, sales tax accounts for about $46.2 million, which is about 30%. Property tax is about $54 million, about 35%. Other, which includes business license, permits, business fees, interest, and so forth, that accounts for $44.4 million. This also includes the $24 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds. And TOT here is estimated at $10.5 million. The fiscal year 21-22 general fund operating budget is estimated about $141.1 million. And again here, this chart, which I believe is, which is what you see in front of you, and we'll fix these slides so when we post it online, it'll be correct. But for the general operating budget, about 71% is for public safety. Public Works accounts for $16.8 million, or 12%. Community and Economic Development is budgeted at $8 million, or 6%. Community Services at $4.5 million, 3% of the operating budget. And then we round out with some long-term debt of about $1.5 million, and all other departments for city administration, including city manager's office, finance, human resources, city attorney, and the information technology department of about $9.8 million. Again, this general fund budget includes the restoration of 17 positions, including addition of a full-time code enforcement officer. It also includes the Be Well Mobile Mental Health Services contract, additional graffiti abatement services, street sign replacement program, traffic, parking, and enforcement, street and traffic signal maintenance, reinvestment in information technology, public facilities and infrastructure, and of about $17.5 million. And the pavement management plan acceleration program of about $17.5 million. The operational budget includes service enhancements that were part of the City Council's budget of priorities, as I said. We estimate operating revenue, again, to be about $155 million, with a surplus being carried over from this current fiscal year, about $21.4 million. Our total budget is estimated at, $176.1 million, and we will end the year with about $303,000. Moving on to fiscal year 22-23, the general fund budget also includes the continuance of quality of life service enhancements, maintaining the staffing levels that we brought back, some park reseeding projects, facility maintenance, work to the Main Street parking lot rehabilitation, and some election costs that are mandated. Fiscal year 22-23 has general fund revenue estimated about $145.3 million. Here, the difference here with this year is TOT is estimated to come back. We anticipate about $21.3 million this year. For sales tax, $48.1 million. Property tax, $55.6 million. And for other revenues, $20.3 million. The fiscal year 22-23 general fund operating budget is estimated at $145.6 million. Again, with public safety accounting for about 72%. That includes both police and fire. And so the fiscal year 22-23 general fund budget, we estimate about $145.6 million in revenues, with total budget of about $145.6 million, and we will be ending the year with a small $19,000. Next, I just wanted to show you some of the general fund budget components. Of course, the city is heavily labor related, so salaries and benefits account for about 50% in the first year. Again, it's a little lower because we have large capital projects for the first year. We have contracts for about 20%. Most of that is comprised of the OCFA contract, and then some small materials and supplies. For fiscal year 22-23, we'll see salaries and benefits more in line with regular years of about 63%, contracts of about 25%, some materials and supplies of 2%, and some other, which includes internal service fund charges and debt service payments and transfers of about 10%. Moving on, I'd like to talk a little bit about our capital improvement program. First off, I'd like to mention street improvements. For the 2 fiscal years, we have estimated about $35.4 million. This includes arterial street rehabilitation, residential overlay programs, concrete replacement, and of course the pavement management acceleration program. As requested by council members at the study session, we did list here some of the projects that are included. Some street projects some of the areas included are Euclid and Westminster, Orangewood from Brookhurst to Euclid, Lamson Avenue from Dale to Magnolia, Lamson Avenue from Haster to Jetty, a sidewalk installation, and Acacia neighborhood street improvements. For traffic improvements for the 2 years, about $1.5 million. We have a new signal at Chapman and Lamplighter, Euclid and Lamson installation of left turn phasing, and then 5 traffic signal modifications throughout the city, including Garden Grove Boulevard at Gilbert, Garden Grove Boulevard at Galway and Casalinda, and then Stanford at Euclid and Brookhurst. For storm drains, we have work on the Acacia Storm Drain Project for about $2.5 million. And for parks, we have $3.6 million, and then pending another $6.2 million in Proposition 68 state grants. These park projects include Civic Center Park, Atlantis Play Center, Garden Grove Park, ADA upgrades at various locations, and then again, the Magnolia Park and Woodbury Park expansion projects are pending grants. For facilities, we have about $17.6 million. This mainly comprised of public facilities and infrastructure. And then we have some projects at the Courtyard Center, the police annex roof replacement, and then some roof repairs at City Hall, the yard, and public safety buildings. For the water utility, we have about $18.5 million in capital improvement projects, including Magnolia Reservoir and the booster pump station, SCADA implementation, water improvement projects located at Allwood and Anthony and Orangewood and Yorkshire, and then some of our annual water replacement projects. And then there will be some assessments for wells 16, 19, and 25. Moving on to sewer projects, about $11.9 million, including the Partridge Lift Station, SCADA upgrades, and then some sewer rehabilitation projects, and then again, citywide sewer replacement for manholes and so forth. And then moving on, we go to some of our grants. Of course, the city does receive some grant funding throughout the year, and we mainly receive it in public safety, capital infrastructure, from neighborhood and community improvement programs, and for environmental. So this lists here some of the budgets that we receive. For public safety, we receive Prop 172 funds, supplemental law enforcement funds, the BSCC local allocation, some post reimbursements from the state, and then Prop 69 funds. For capital infrastructure, we receive Measure M2 grants, and then, of course, we're pending that state park and recreation. For community improvement, we have county services, senior mobility grant, the FACT grant that provides funding for our Magnolia Park Resource Center, CDBG funds, emergency services funds, and the home grant. As for environmental, we receive funds from the California Department of Conservation for recycling funds, used oil, and then the Air Quality Management District. Total grants for fiscal year 21-22 is about $6.9 million, and for fiscal year 22-23, total is about $11.6 million. Next, I want to talk about our water services, our water utility. The budget's here. We refinanced water bonds in October 2020. The budget will include review and update water rates to develop a sustainable water utility financial plan, continue to implement the water master plan, continue with major capital replacement, compliance with mandates, and then continue our joint efforts on construction of PFAS treatment facilities. For water, the operating revenue is estimated about $42.1 million for fiscal year 21-22, with total budget of about $54.9 million. This includes a capital carryover about $3.9 million. And then we'll be ending the fiscal year 21-22 with a working capital of $17.5 million. That going over to fiscal year 22-23, we have operating revenue of about $43.4 million. Oh, and I forgot to mention, with the bond refinancing for some of our capital improvement projects, we'll be receiving bond proceeds as those projects continue. So bond proceeds of about $4.1 million. Total uses, total budget for the second year is about almost $45 million, and we'll be ending working capital of about $20 million. The budget includes the city's obligations to CalPERS for retirement benefits included in the city's unfunded pension liability. These payments are provided by CalPERS in their annual valuation report. Payment towards the city's unfunded pension liability will total $24.9 million in year one and $26.9 million in year two. The city's current unfunded pension liability is $104 million for the miscellaneous group and $205 million for public safety. The next couple of slides, I'd like to share with you just a quick snapshot of a 5-year forecast. This forecast is based on continued economic recovery with modest sales tax increases of about 2%, property tax growth of about 3% as provided by our consultant, 10% TOT increases after fiscal year 22-23. And for the expenses side, the assumption here is that there will be no changes to the CalPERS discount rate, status quo labor contracts, small CPI increases to contracts and commodities, and some modest reinvestment to infrastructure and maintenance. Here we believe with continued recovery in our TOT revenues, along with prudent spending, staff is optimistic that by fiscal year 23-24, the city will achieve a structurally balanced budget, which again is where revenues equal or are more than our expenses, and we would not need to use any one-time sources to balance the budget. Looking forward, we are optimistic from a lot of opportunities that the city sees, some economic recovery, the reopening of California, the recovery of tourism, Site C development, and of course with the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Of course, with opportunities, we do have continued challenges with our deferred infrastructure improvements, increase in labor costs, risk management, workers' compensation funding, rising costs for contracts and commodities, and of course, mental health and homelessness in our community. With that, it is recommended that the City Council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove adopting the city's general fund and general and basic funds, cable services, grants, water services, capital improvements, and special assessment districts budgets for fiscal year 21-22 and fiscal year 22-23. Adopt a resolution of the City Council of the Garden Grove adopting the Housing Authority budget for fiscal year 21-22 and fiscal year 22-23. I believe we have a quorum now, so I think we're going to be going back to the Housing Authority. And then a resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove adopting an appropriations limit for fiscal year 21-22, implementing Article 8B of the state constitution pursuant to Section 7900 of the Government Code, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove appropriating fund balances as of June 30th, 2021 to reserves for future year reappropriation, a resolution reappropriating certain fiscal year 2021 project balances and encumbrances for fiscal year 21-22, and approve the overnight conference and training list for fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Ann. Any questions? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will go ahead and open the public hearing. Any comments, any speakers on this? I kind of guessed. Go ahead. I do have a card for you. I'm sorry, so you'll come up next. Go ahead, Nick.
Mayor Jones, did we not want to go to Housing Authority?
Oh, do we want to open the Housing Authority simultaneously with this?
Yes, you can do that for the budget portion of it. I believe that Housing Authority has other items as well.
Okay. Do we need to call roll or do anything formal on that, or we just convene at both? We should call roll because now Fat joined as well.
Should we recess council, go to Housing Authority, get the consent out of the way, and then combine the public hearing?
We're in the middle.
Maybe
of
to
this
keep
public
it
hearing item.
keep it simple.
Yep.
The Housing Authority will adopt its own resolution on the budget, but the City Council does approve the Housing Authority budget. So why don't you move forward just to City Council, get it all approved, and then you can recess the Housing Authority.
Gotcha. Okay. Nick Dibbs.
Mayor Jones, members of the council, citizens of Garden Grove, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. I did not intend to stay for this entire meeting, but I did find it interesting to be here in the room and to see the staff's presentation on the budget, as well as the prior items. First off, I want to say it's in a city the size of Garden Grove, it's kind of a disappointment that we don't have very many people here as far as citizen and civic engagement to comment on these issues and so on. I do want to urge the mayor and the council, as I've said before, to allow people to call in, or if they're going to submit a letter or an email, read the email out loud so that their comments and input can be provided, even if they can't be present, so that we can improve the engagement of the citizens. Now, I think I hope all of you agree that having gone through this pandemic for over a year, almost a year and a half, it's taught us something. It's a learning lesson, I think, that we have to be prepared for unforeseen calamities or problems or issues or emergencies that happen, because we can't always know what's coming around the corner. I am disappointed that the budget only has a surplus after 2 years of only $19,000. I think that we need to have a contingency fund for emergencies, and I don't know if there's an off-budget item already in existence or a fund that's off-budget that's already in existence that has that. But we have unfunded liabilities of over $100 million. So this city is dependent on the transient occupancy tax, the hotel tax, as it's also known, for a significant part of the budget. And if something such as an earthquake or another pandemic or some other calamity should happen, that hotel income is going to go down. So we have to have, in the long-term planning, not just for the next 2 years, but for long-term, of having a contingency fund or funds of money set aside for emergencies and unforeseen things that could calamities or catastrophes that could happen. We do live in earthquake country, and if there was a major earthquake, forget about your hotel occupancy tax revenue, because people aren't going to be coming to a hotel. Well, maybe they will, but if they're still standing. So I think the pandemic has taught us a learning lesson that we need to have more money available. If we didn't have the income from the federal government, the relief funding, we would be in the hole. So we're grateful, obviously, to have that money. But moving forward for long-term planning, I think we need to have money for that. I did have some other comments also, and it's unfortunate that we're out of time. Since there's only a few of us here, maybe if you can let me come back up after the others speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Malley.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Manager. Was looking at the budget information online as of yesterday afternoon. On revenue projection summary, the page 7, again, I want to go back to my point earlier on the 8% tax for paramedics. I did notice when reading the resolution that it says, if any part of this is unconditional, if anything is miswritten, it doesn't matter. So I just want to address that we're raising $38,900 a day for paramedic services. And this tax is bringing in 47% of all the OCFD budget. And I kind of think it might be a very low-hanging fruit or a very loose reading of the original tax that said, I think 1974, it was to provide paramedic services. Yes, it is providing paramedic services. But I've got the same Bell palsy, so I've been functioning blind for about a month, and I have not been able to research to the original 1974, 60% of the populace at that time, which was much more diverse and much smaller than it is now, as to how it's written. I would hate to really initiate something that would knock a hell of a hole in the budget, but I think we need to look at what was meant and how it was written and what it was for. I don't think it was supposed to, I even tried to look back 2017, 2018, before things moved over to the contractual services, but I've had this problem for a month, so I would not be able to see if there was a breakdown between fire and paramedics in previous budgets. But I think we need, again, I have voted for my 16 years as a homeowner here. I voted for every school tax, for everything, but I just looking at this, and I think it's a very wide reading of the original purpose of this assessment. And my opinion, I'd like to take a look at that. Again, it'd be a hell of a thing to knock a $13 million hole in the budget. You know, it might be frightening being an accountant on that. The next item on that, page 7, I noticed historically for revenue projections, parking fines have run about 1.2, 1.08, 1.02 million a year. And not parking, but excuse me, the traffic fines. Parking fines have just been about the same, $1 million and change. I noticed the budget going forward all the way through 2025, 26, for the 5-year projection, shows the traffic fines, even though there's been this emphasis on greater traffic enforcement, that drops down to a projection of $800,000 a year. With greater enforcement, we're bringing in less, unless we're being instructing our public service to say, hey, don't do it again, and I'll let you go this time, right? So I don't understand the greater traffic enforcement, why the budget would go down. The next one is on parking fines. They increased by over 33%. So are we saying we're going to allocate public safety to revenue generation? I don't get that also. So, and
thank you. You got to wrap it up.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, the other thing is over the next 2 years, salaries go up $9.6 million. I understand $2.1 million is included for the 17 plus the 18 positions. So I think that's like 4% a year over the next 2 years, which I think it's quite high. Anyway, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Manager, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Sorry about that. It's his first time here. He didn't know any better, and I didn't cut him off. Thank you, though. Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Colleagues? I'll just make a comment. I know that Patricia and a lot of people from every department put a whole lot of time and effort into this over the last several months in preparation. We appreciate the study sessions that we've had, the briefings that we've had, agenda reviews to go over this in great detail. So we've spent a lot of time and we've been guided very clearly in terms of where we're at. We want to thank you for your very amazing and professional reports. Colleagues?
Yes, please.
Stephanie, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I know up here on the dais I talk a lot about code enforcement and graffiti and homelessness, as we all do, because these are priorities and issues that are affecting the residents of this city. When we talk about our council priorities, those priorities come from the fact that we have residents asking us for help in their local community, in their neighborhood with these issues. So I think it's important for the residents to know when we see that there's resources being allocated to our infrastructure and roads, to graffiti, to homelessness, to code enforcement and parking. It's very important for you to understand that we hear you, and we're doing the very best we can to make sure that we are giving these issues that are affecting everyone and affecting us. We live in this city too. Its due diligence and the attention and action that it deserves. So I just want to thank Ann and Patricia for your hard work and for the entire city team on this budget. I think this was probably the most digestible and easy to read and well-organized budget that I've seen thus far as a council person. So thank you very much.
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, I too echo my colleagues in commending very fine jobs by city staff and also by the city manager, Mr. Stein. I find what is interesting this time, and I really appreciate it, because the outline that you're giving us at the beginning of the study session is really helpful for us to see the big picture, because obviously you can see that this 60-plus page of financial information is really not easy to follow. And so some of the highlights that you're giving us, Scott, is really helpful. And I just want to let you know that this year you take some more time to hit those points and as compared to other years, and I think it's really helpful, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tua.
I just want to do to my colleagues. First of all, commending every single staff from different departments put extra work on this, especially the presentations. It's very well detailed, easy to understand. I think it's come down with accounting and number is very hard, but this time it's very easy to follow, and we're very glad that all the number align. And we're looking forward for the next 2 years. We continue growth, and definitely we're going to focus on areas that we has been a little behind. So now with the new budget, hopefully we can improve the infrastructures. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I had some comments and questions, so I kind of wanted to let everyone go first. Please bear with me. I'll try to be pretty brief as possible. At the study session, we were provided the fancy proposed little binder, I don't know what to call it, but the proposed budget. And so that was my first time seeing it. So I have some comments for this specifically, and that will tie into the budget. I did have a question on page 4 regarding the animal care services. I saw that from there was a $125,000 difference from 2021 to 21-23. So I was wondering if that was because that's when we first did our own animal care services, so there was more costs associated to startup. It's in the revenue summary in thousands of dollars, page 4 of the proposed biennial budget. Are you looking at the animal control revenue? Yes, sorry, animal control, not animal services. Yeah, so in the adopted, for year-end fiscal year 1920, we did have animal control revenue of about $402,000. For this current fiscal year, we estimate about $350,000, and we revised the 21-22 and 22-23 numbers down because it doesn't look like for this current fiscal year we're going to be making that $350,000. We have Public Works in the process of kind of trying to understand why we're not collecting some of those animal license fees. But we think the fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23, the $225,000 is going to be more in line with what we'll receive. We did have a very high year for 19-20. That's probably just because it was a new program. People were paying their dog license fees. And then, of course, just human behavior, that kind of trickles off. Okay. And then on page 11, at the very bottom, there's a key that indicates transfers. And I just wanted to know what that meant. So it includes transfer to cable, transfer to econ development, and transfer to self-supporting recreation, but I didn't understand what transfers meant. Sure. So we have three funds, specifically cable, our economic development, and our self-supporting recreation. And each year there, the revenues that are set aside for these three specific things don't meet the expenses. So what happens is the general fund subsidizes.
Got it. Thank you. I think the next couple of things I have are more so comments. On page 13, regarding the city manager's office mission and goals, I just wanted to reiterate that for item number 3, which was the progress for City Hall security enhancement design and construction project, don't forget about the nursing station. I think I brought this up a few years ago. There wasn't a dedicated space for nursing for women who have just given birth, so I wanted to make sure that that's included in the redesign for City Hall. And then on page 14, regarding the city manager's org chart, it only shows one assistant city manager. I know we have like a hybrid situation because Director Kim serves as both, but I think that there should still be some mention of her on there. On page 12, regarding human resources, I didn't see the mention of the implicit bias training, so I'd like to see that incorporated in there to ensure that that's part of our focus, since that was a huge topic of discussion last year. Page 33 for IT, was really happy to see that the website and app updates plus the transition to the cloud was one of the goals and priorities. For 37, which is econ dev and community economic development, obviously arena and housing, the housing element is critical. Community services, page 41, item number 4, I think addressing the digital divide. With the pandemic, we saw things that we normally wouldn't do online or through digital services, that we're going to be doing that, so that's huge that we carry that on moving forward. For page 45, regarding PD, item number 3 that references organizational goals, I would have wished to see that they would have incorporated specific language towards new strategies for crime prevention and specifically listed out mental health and homelessness rather than just referencing back to the organizational goals, since those are hot button topics right now. So it would have been nice to see that and not just solely the focus of the funding and the development and building of the new PD. 49, Public Works. Want to just shout out them for being the only department that mentioned succession planning, which I think is critical. And then just wanted to note that I did ask you to include the project list on this presentation. I didn't know that it was on the end of this packet, so that was really helpful to see that in there. I appreciate that. And then also just thank you for including the staffing breakdown. I know that I requested that during the study session. To Councilmember Klopfenstein's point, a lot of those things that we talked about as being important to us, one of the major ones that I keep hearing about is graffiti, and I know that we've increased $137,000 dedicated to graffiti abatement. I'm hoping that that includes color matching, because that's one of the biggest complaints I hear from residents. Really happy to see there's going to be a sidewalk placed from Lamson on Hastur to Jetty, and obviously waiting for grant approval for Woodbury Park. And the last 2 things that I wanted to make comments on, the first is I know we are constantly talking about the plans going forward for the building of the new police department, and just want to make sure that when we're talking about that we frame our reference as far as a master plan that includes the library and the redesign for City Hall, so that all of these things are happening in conjunction rather than siloed off to one project at a time, because I don't want to have a mistake happen later where we did something for one thing and then didn't think about how it was going to coordinate with the other major renovations and builds that we have coming down the pike for the other 2 sections. And lastly, I know I mentioned this during the study session, which was the school crossing guards. I know it's only $233,000, guys, but $233,000 could potentially be 2 jobs, 2 positions. Could be additional funding for programs. It could be a drop in the bucket for public works somewhere. So I'd really like to see staff between now and December, when I believe the contract ends, to meet and discuss with Garden Grove Unified School District about having them pay for that. I know that other cities are now looking at that and kind of asking the question is, why are we paying for that? So I'd really like for us to push Garden Grove Unified School District to take up that cost, seeing that they are one of the larger districts and they receive significantly more funding than we do as a city. I'd really like for them to be paying the $233,000 for that contract. Other than that, thank you very much for all of your hard work. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions, comments, any staff rebuttal, any of that kind of stuff, or are we prepared for someone to make a motion?
I make the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Klovenstein? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, that takes us to 4D, but I think we'll pause right there and we'll go back to Housing Authority so we can conduct that business, and then we'll come back to this Housing Authority related item.
City Clerk, may I please ask you to call roll?
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Bowie?
Here.
Commissioner Klopfenstein? Vice Chair Deidre Nguyen?
Here.
And Chair Kim Nguyen.
Here. Do we have anyone wishing to speak? Okay.
What's that? Oh, number 3?
Moving along to consent items, we have receive and file the Housing Authority status report, as well as receive and file minutes from the meeting held on May 25th.
Motion
Move it.
approved.
Second.
Thank you. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Klopfenstein? Yes. Commissioner Bowie?
Yes.
Vice Chair Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
And Chair Kim Nguyen.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Moving along, we have item 3A, which is a public hearing item.
Item 3A is adoption of a resolution approving the Garden Grove Housing Authority biennial budget for fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-23. And Mr. Nguyen is here to give the report.
Good evening, Chairwoman, Commissioners. The Section 8 Housing Assistance Program is federally funded through the Department of Housing and Urban Development to assist very low-income families, seniors, and disabled persons in payment of rent on the privately owned rental market. While the Housing Authority is allocated with 2,529 vouchers, we're only able to assist approximately 2,400 families at the current funding level. We also administer an additional 300 families from incoming portability. Incoming portabilities are participants from other housing authorities, in other jurisdictions who moved into Garden Grove. An administrative fee is paid to the Garden Grove Housing Authority to administer these families. All Section 8 rental units are inspected before admissions and annually or biannually to ensure they are decent, safe, and sanitary. It is estimated that in the coming year, Housing Authority staff will perform over 5,000 inspections. We also administer the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. This program is for current Section 8 participants and is designed to encourage tenant participation in education and career development. In addition, the Housing Authority has assets from the former Garden Grove Agency. These assets include land purchase from housing set-aside funds and several affordable housing agreements. Revenues generated from these agreements is used for operational costs of administering the assets. I will now turn over to Budget Manager Ann Eifert to complete the report.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. As Mr. Nguyen mentioned, the Housing Authority is federally funded through through HUD. Rental subsidies of up to 2,529 low-income families. This budget includes 75 mainstream vouchers program of about $1.2 million and up to $100,000 in admin costs, and 117 emergency housing vouchers of about $1.7 million and up to $455,000 for admin costs. As Mr. Nguyen mentioned, the Housing Authority budget includes outreach activities to tenants and landlords, the initial and annual inspections, continuing the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, maintain owned properties, and monitor former agency affordable housing agreements. The budget for the Housing Authority is estimated about $45 million for both years. We anticipate a beginning balance of about $4.4 million. And most of that is through a repayment of loans in the amount of $3.1 million from the ROPS. However, this is a restricted fund and to be used only for building affordable housing. And again, they'll end the year with about $4.5 million from the Housing Authority. It's recommended that the Housing Authority conduct a public hearing on the proposed budget and adopt the attached resolution approving the authority's budget for fiscal year 21-22 and fiscal year 22-23. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for staff? I have a quick one. I noticed that we have allocation of 2,529 vouchers, but we have 119 that are unfulfilled. And I think we've asked this question of you before, but please refresh my memory. Is this because we don't receive enough funding from HUD to fulfill the full amount of the vouchers?
Yes.
Okay. So
Particularly the regular vouchers that we have 2,337, and the funding that we have currently receiving, we can help approximately 2,200.
okay, so we still have some work in lobbying our congressional members to get us more money. Got it. Seeing no other questions, I'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any other comments or questions from Housing Authority members? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
I motion it.
Second it.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowie,
Yes.
Commissioner Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Vice Chair Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
and Chair Kim Nguyen.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Do we have any matters from commissioners, directors, or for me? None? Seeing none, we'll adjourn this meeting and return it back to City Council.
Alrighty, thank you. We'll reconvene City Council and go back to public hearings. Next up is item 4D.
Item 4D is adoption of a resolution approving the Garden Grove Housing Authority biennial budget for fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-23, and this is a joint action item with the Garden Grove Housing Authority.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, we can go through the report again?
I was going to say,
or-
this is a joint item with
Yeah.
the Housing Authority item we just did, so I don't think we really need to hear the report again. So it is, however, a public hearing, so is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing.
I move to approve.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. That takes us on to Commission Committee Matters. 5A is consideration of an appointment to fill a vacancy on the Housing Authority Commission, and I would like to nominate Victoria Tinduck to fill that vacancy. Can I get a second?
Second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Otherwise, we'll call the vote. Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
All righty, thank you. Items for consideration, we have several. So we'll start with item 6A. Patricia.
Item 6A is adoption of a resolution establishing an infrastructure funding policy, and Ms. Song is here to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm very excited tonight to present to you this policy. This is the third new policy we created since 2019, and it's part of a financial policy series that are being developed over time to strengthen the city's financial condition and ensure our ability to continuously deliver quality services to our community. The city has been facing the challenge of developing a framework that addresses our infrastructure deficit accumulated over the last decade and yet still allows strategic investment for future growth. Infrastructure deficit is the gap between available resources and our infrastructure funding needs, including both maintaining existing assets and new investments. The proposed infrastructure funding policy serves as a framework and should be used as a tool for us to formulate a balanced approach to fund our infrastructure needs. Our goal is to have a transparent and accountable long-term strategy that balances our day-to-day competing priorities and enables collaboration throughout our entire organization. Like Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, that we need this no silos, but collaboration among all functional units, and generate the revenue needed to address the infrastructure deficit and gradually develop new funding relationships. Within this framework, staff has identified various strategies as well as their corresponding action plans. Successful implementation of this policy is dependent upon council support, interdepartmental collaboration again, and financial commitment, as well as innovation, innovative thinking. So now let's take a look at the policy. As mentioned previously, the proposed policy establishes a framework to address our infrastructure deficit and plan for the future. The three cornerstones of this framework are financial commitment, infrastructure stewardship, and strategic planning or prioritization of investment. The tools necessary to achieve these three fundamental goals are three separate yet correlated financial policy and management and strategic plans, showing on the slide over here. The first cornerstone is a capital asset renewal and replacement reserve policy. This is a financial policy that supports proactive financial management given many demands on a government's resources. It demonstrates financial commitment and promotes responsible long-term planning. A good written capital replacement reserve policy will promote a shared understanding of the proper level of reserves and facilitate healthy working relationships throughout the organization. This policy would also be viewed positively by rating agencies, so it's a potential to enhance the city's credit rating. The second component of the framework is asset management plans. Asset management is not a singular activity or project. Rather, it is a systematic process that facilitates decision-making in regards to the construction, acquisition, maintenance, renewal, replacement, and disposition of assets in the most cost-effective manner. Asset management plans are integrated with and help guide the long-range infrastructure investment planning process based on considerations such as affordability and desired service levels. It also helps us prudently manage our significant investment in capital improvement and serves as a strategic tool to optimize asset repairs and replacement. A good example of an asset management plan is the pavement management plan that is updated every other year. Last year, Director Murray presented the latest pavement management plan to the City Council and also mentioned that we are developing a funding strategy to fund for this huge gap that's identified by this plan. So what this plan did, or the report did, is to tell us where we are in regards to our infrastructure, what do we have and what conditions are they in, and also the funding needs to make sure that we are maintaining or improving all the existing infrastructure, which is critical for the city, for the economy. It is the backbone for the economy, as a matter of fact. Now, similar plans will be developed and updated for each major infrastructure type, such as building and facilities, storm drains, sidewalks, parks and median, and our information technology assets as well. So the third cornerstone is a comprehensive infrastructure plan. Now, this plan sets a series of criteria to prioritize infrastructure investment based on master plans for each asset class. It offers additional insight and a broad overview of the city's infrastructure needs and financial reality. and is intended to be a blueprint for maintaining sustainable and affordable service delivery for our residents by incorporating the plan information into our biennial budget and 5-year CIP. The infrastructure plan enhances the decision-making process through continuous monitoring of the city's infrastructure deficit, debt capacity, and financing sources. Departments will use infrastructure plan as basis to guide their investment planning efforts based on the aligned capital priorities identified in the master plans and budget availability. The infrastructure plan will present a prioritized listing that represents the most value to the city based on the cost-benefit ratio, which factors in overall benefit of a capital project with financial impact to the city in order to capture the true value of the proposed investment. This is consistent with the development of our master plans, but also takes consideration of budget and affordability. Now, as a framework, the proposed infrastructure funding policy calls out 10 actionable items. Some of them has already been discussed, such as the first one on the slide is establish a financial policy to demonstrate funding commitment. That is the reserve policy for capital asset replacement. Other actionable items are also listed here. Some are to maximize the use of our existing financial tools. This includes updating our debt policy to promote transparency and establish standard procedures for grant evaluation. Updating our master fee schedule and allow increase in infrastructure budgeting and better align with reality. We talked about number 5 here, which is establish a comprehensive infrastructure plan. This is one of the best practices that was called out in the proposed policy. Additional best practices include the use of benchmark in our master plans, develop asset management plans as previously discussed, and create an infrastructure subcommittee to ensure the proper and timely implementation of this proposed plan once adopted. Last but not least, we wanted to promote innovation and collaboration through this policy. So action numbers 9 and 10 are included here to allow public-private partnership, or P3, in infrastructure investment and interagency joint development to create regional focus. This slide here shows an approximate timeline for staff to implement the 10 actionable items that we just discussed, because we do want to deliver some tangible work products to the City Council. Council can anticipate a new fiscal policy on capital reserves to be presented to you by end of this calendar year. Additionally, Finance will also be working on updating our debt policy by June of next year. The city will also continue to update our master fee schedule to ensure that full cost accounting is applied. The full cost accounting is applied, and true cost in relation to the use of capital assets in service delivery is captured in the fees. The comprehensive infrastructure plan is a joint effort among several city departments, and it will be developed along with our master plan updates and ensure consistency. Asset management plan is another ongoing effort. We will start implement some of the funding strategies based on the 2020 pavement management plan. Specifically, in this biennial budget, $17 million were set aside to fund this initiative with the help from the American Rescue Plan Act. And finally, we will work towards the development of a series of criteria and performance standards for P3 and interagency joint development by the summer or fall of 2022. So this is an overview of the proposed infrastructure funding policy, and we recommend that the City Council adopt the resolution to formally establish the policy, and staff can start working towards those actionable items. And this concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Patricia. Colleagues, questions, comments?
Just one quick one. Can you clarify what you mean by infrastructure subcommittee? Who would make up that?
The subcommittee can be comprised of staff members and key city leadership. We can definitely define it in more specific to see if we should have any elected officials on the committee as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I might add a couple other points related to this. We've got two big chunks of funding in this budget. One is for facility improvements, public safety improvements. The other is for our our pavement acceleration plan. And so, for example, when I spoke to Mr. Murray about our recommendations for funding for roads and streets, I think he was initially concerned that he had to rush all the money out this summer and he wouldn't have time to properly plan for it. So obviously part of this infrastructure plan is we'll be sitting down as a staff, he and his staff, the finance people, trying to think about the best way to get this money out the door over the course of the next couple years when we have to use these funds. So we'll be coming back to council with more information. I think it fits into the infrastructure plan, what we're talking about, where we can talk to you more about it. In terms of the public safety facility, and I've talked to several members of council about this, as we look at it in terms of the public safety building, there's a lot of component parts within that whole civic center block. And so now that council, you have approved this budget, I expect some pretty robust conversations with all of you over the next coming months about kind of a planning process for that, how we take it forward, how we incorporate the whole thing, because of course, you know, what we're talking about is significantly more expensive than just the $17.5 million that we set aside. But I really kind of see a really strong planning process, lots of community engagement that incorporates the needs of our public safety facilities, our folks, plus everything that goes along with it. We know we have some residential obligations there. So I think it's going to be an exciting next couple years trying to think about that whole area. So certainly we'll be coming back to you with a lot more discussion about that over the next couple years, and the policies that Patricia's kind of laying out there will help guide us going forward. So those are just some thoughts I had.
Thank you. Patricia, I'd like to commend you on bringing a very sophisticated new level of thinking to our finance department. You know, you see this, this type of policy in larger organizations that I've had the privilege of being involved with, like OCTA and Orange County Sanitation District, that have to look out over the horizon on large dollars and deferred maintenance issues within the infrastructure and whatnot. But this is a breath of fresh air, and you know, with as we're coming out of the pandemic and we've got ARPA and we've got a lot of things sort of looking forward, it's great to face our deferred maintenance issues within the infrastructure head on and plan for them and budget for them and act appropriately in our spending and our budgeting and planning in future years. So this is absolutely wonderful, and I'm sure Bill Murray's pretty thrilled too, seeing this dedicated sort of effort towards the infrastructure. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Just one quick question. Regarding the master fee schedule, does that include all the, any fee that the city charges up front to our residents?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
some of the fees, the services delivered also uses the infrastructure, so we want to make sure it's a full cost accounting incorporating all of these elements.
No, this
Make
is
sure
great.
it's
I know
reasonable.
that during the budget ad hoc that we had several years ago, I think first 2 years while I was in office with Councilmember O'Neill and then Councilmember Beard, that was one of the things that we reiterated. It was hard because we had so many fees, and I don't know that there was all a coordinated effort to make sure that we were ensuring that we were charging what other cities were charging for those fees, and we were actually losing money rather than seeing a match. So that's really exciting. I'd like to move to approve. As someone who writes policies for a living, I was trying to find something wrong with it, but it was a well-written policy, so I'd like to make the motion to approve.
I'll second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie.
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. 6B.
6B is award a contract to RJ Noble Company for project number CP 1293000 Catella Avenue Overlay Project from Magnolia Street to Jean Street. And Mr. Murray is here to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council. Tonight, City Council is being asked to award a contract to RJ Noble Company for the Catella Street Overlay Project from Magnolia to Jean Street. This is a joint project that's being led by the County of Orange. so our portion of it is very small. The project will include the removal and replacement of existing failed pavement, removal and replacement of uplifted curb, gutter, sidewalks, drive approaches. For the most part, the project will involve cold milling existing failed asphalt and replacing it with new asphalt overlay. The total budget for the project, or the cost that the contract to RJ Noble will be for, is almost $290,000, so $286,733.33 or 35 cents. The project, if awarded, could begin construction in July 5th or July of this year and should be done by the end of summer. All of this work will be paid for using Measure M2 funds and is included, this work's included in our annual CIP. This concludes staff's reports, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Or a motion?
Second.
Call to vote.
Councilmember Deidre Wynn? Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
6C.
Item 6C is award a contract to Civil Tech Engineering, Inc. for professional engineering services for engineering and condition evaluation of well numbers 16, 19, and 25. And Mr. Murray is here to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, we're here to ask City Council to award a contract to Civil Tech Engineering Incorporated for professional engineering services that will basically evaluate the condition of 3 wells as called for by the city's water master plan. These wells are basically at the end of their useful life or their design life and have been identified in the water master plan to go ahead and evaluate. And from that initial evaluation, we'll determine whether the wells need, what work needs to be done to each one, including, that could include anywhere from just redoing the casings and the pump fixtures or actually drilling a new well. Staff requested proposals from 3 qualified firms. Unfortunately, we were only able to get 1 proposal back for various reasons. One didn't meet the meeting that was required, and another one's insurance wasn't up to spec. Fortunately, the selected consultant, Civil Tech, we've worked with previously, and they perform good work, and we feel confident in their abilities, and we were satisfied with our negotiated price. There is no impact to the general fund with this, but it will be paid for using water funds, and the amount of the contract is almost $470,000. So as recommended to City Council, go ahead and award that contract. And should they decide to do that tonight, we should be complete with this work by spring of next year, 2022. This concludes my report, and I'm available should you have any questions.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions?
Move to approve.
A second.
Call to vote, please.
Councilmember Deidre Wynn?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. 6D.
6D is award contracts to ePlansoft Inc. to provide electronic plan review and CVOS Inc. to provide online permitting services. And Ms. Kim, our Assistant City Manager, is here to give the report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The item before you this evening has been a collective effort between the Community Development, Public Works, and IT departments to facilitate streamlining of building plan check and permitting activities. Ms. Chang and Mr. Dent will be providing a general overview of how we incorporated technology to provide improvements to service delivery to our customers. We will also address and provide some additional remarks of how the building team has responded to the increased demand for inspection services. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Chang, followed by Mr. Dent for some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in modified City Hall services that went from appointment-based to a full closure of public service counters. The pandemic prompted an assessment of services for both electronic plan check and online permitting, which quickly prioritized our need for remote and web-based access. The goal was to streamline virtual development services, online applications, plan review, permitting, automate workflow, and include a public portal. Staff solicited 7 firms and received 6 complete responses. A panel of 6 staff members from different divisions rated the proposals based on qualification, work plan, references, oral interviews, demonstrations, and customer service. Based on the evaluation results, staff determined 2 separate technical expertise offered by 2 different firms. ePlansoft was rated the highest with a solution focused on plan review, and second highest was CVOS with a solution focused on a full system upgrade for the city's current permitting software. With consideration of time, budget, and the ability to customize both systems to meet specific needs of the city, staff is recommending contracts with 2 of the 3 firms. The plan is to ultimately provide better customer service and response time for the community, who would be able to submit online 24/7 and have the flexibility to check the status of their project at any time. The 2 proposed solutions would save travel time, printing, scanning, and improve efficiency with all parties involved. It's recommended that City Council award contract for electronic plan review to ePlansoft in the not to exceed amount of $100,000 per year for a 5-year term. Award a contract for online permitting to CVOS in the not to exceed amount of $100,000 at a one-time cost for a 5-year term. Authorize the city manager or his designee to execute the agreement and make minor modifications. Authorize the city manager or his designee to exercise option years and sign option year amendments. This completes my report, and staff is available for any questions. And the representatives from both ePlansoft and CVOS are also here to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleague, any questions?
Please.
Go ahead, Fat.
Question, so this $1,000 per year is for the software licenses, support, and what else? That include the hardware, or do they provide hardware, or we provide hardware?
For the ePlansoft, the $100,000 per year includes a license subscription, which includes a cloud hosting, product updates, documentations, telephone, email, and online support. It's an all-inclusive plan. So, and because it's a cloud-based system, it doesn't require any installation of software.
Okay. The question is not directly related to the ePlansoft itself, but more on the question. I think it's great to, for smart processing, utilizing technology to streamline and make it more efficient. That's really great. What I have experienced is we have a mix of application. We have application for bigger project like remodeling, building a new house, which require a lengthy reviewing process. And then we also have application for something that is quick, like a hot heater replacement or replacement of certain things like the rotten fence with a block wall, for example. In the past, people can get a block wall permit over the counter really quick. They just come to the city hall, submit the drawings and sketch, that can be drawn by hand as long as they have the detailed information. And then they will be given a booklet that, as long as they follow the, outline on the booklet, it should be fine. So for application like that, people can get a permit done very quickly. With the internet submission process, that is no longer viable during COVID. And we understand that because of COVID, no one can go to counter to do that. But now we are already open the city for business. With this e-plan software, do we have any process where people can have an option to go to the counter and get a quick, over-the-counter permit like we used to?
No.
Good evening, Mayor and honorable council members. To speak more directly about that process, that's going to be viable no matter what system we have. We'll always be open to the public for small express permits. Currently, right now, the way it works is there's only one channel in which projects come through, which is digital, as you're mentioning. But as we evolve and we implement the new processes, there'll be a way to distinguish the different applications online. Because right now, it's just an email. But with the new system, and when you basically submit, we can actually distinguish between the express permits, which you're talking about, which are the HVAC systems, water heaters, block walls. We could distinguish those from the longer range projects. And for those that need to come in, they'll still be able to come in. They may have a paper application, but the permit staff at the counter will still input that project digitally to complete the application process and to process that permit. So even still, both ways will be available to the public.
That is good to know, but please clarify for me. So if I have a water replacement, I can go to the city hall or I can submit it online. But if I choose to come to the city hall, I can go to the counters. Staff will help us and enter it into the e-plan soft system. But within however long it takes, maybe half an hour, I got a permit. I don't have to wait days for me to get the permit. Is that correct?
Correct, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a modified counter to where most of I'll back it up. The whole purpose of the new system is to mitigate and basically economize the permit tech's time. So what happens when someone brings in a plan check that's paper or an application that's paper, there's time for the inputting that the permit tech does at the counter. It's done like that now for online email applications as well as paper applications. So the time saved that the new system's going to bring in, where the customer inputs pretty much 60% of that information, it will free up more time to assist at the counter for those that bring in paper, for them to be inputted the same way. So it would allow a permit tech to enter that paper application if someone happened to bring that into the system, whereas we save time on the back end because most of the people doing online submittals will be inputting their own information, so it'll free up time to allow for a better customer service at the counter. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. If I may, I know it's late, but if I may understand. So if I submit it, now the system will differentiate between the longer review process and the one that is quick, like the block wall, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So if I submit it, even if I submit it online, it will go through a different process. It's not going to sit on a very long queue. Is that correct?
Well, what happens is no matter if you bring in a paper application right now or email it, the permit tech still has to manually enter the information into the system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens either way. With the new system, all those online submittals, they'll basically fill out the information, automate it, and develop the application themselves, which would save our permit techs that time, which will allow more time for those to actually bring in paper submittal applications to do at the counter. Because right now there's a line basically of applications right now that are 20 to 30 applications long. They have to pull up the application online and then actually manually have two screens that they're sitting in front of and manually input the system.
So with this new system and the revised process, where we differentiate between the category of the application, if I submit for a water heater, whether online or coming into the city hall, I will probably get it within that same day, as opposed to during the COVID, I have to wait days before I can get the permit because I'm, at that time we didn't differentiate between the application. Everything will be queue behind, so I'm waiting behind a lot of the ADU application. Is that correct?
That's correct. With the new system, it will be available to do express online permits in the same day. Yes.
That's good. That's good to know. Thank you, and I think that's really great.
If I may also maybe just add some additional input. During COVID, the information relating to intake of paper was quarantined for 24 hours. So there were some additional protocols that were deployed during COVID that we put in place. So there, to address your comments that there was a couple of days delay, it was as a result of some protocols that we've deployed, but as a result of post-COVID, certainly the express permit, and as we're working with our respective vendors, there will certainly be an express workflow that will be developed. So I wanted to make sure that that was mentioned.
More question?
Thank you.
No? I move the motion.
Second.
If there's no more question.
Great. I'll call the vote.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you, guys. Moving on to ordinances for second reading and adoption. We have two of them. 7A.
7A is second reading of ordinance number 2923 entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving planned unit development number PUD 12812A, an amendment to planned unit development number PUD 12812 to establish separate implementation provisions and development standards for property located on the east side of Harbor Boulevard between Chapman Avenue and Twin Tree Lane at 12202 Harbor Boulevard, assessor parcel number 2314921.
Move to approve?
Call the vote.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
And Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. 7B.
7B is second reading of ordinance number 2924 entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove establishing the amount of money for paramedic services that must be raised by an ad valorem tax override and the setting of the tax rate of said override.
Move to approve?
Who was the second?
Do I have a second?
Let's-
Okay, call the vote.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
And Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us on to matters. We do have a couple listed items, so we'll start with 8A as requested by Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. I recently asked the Assistant City Manager, Maria Stipe, if she could assist me in reaching out to Republic Services to see if they would be willing to consider implementing a proposed dumpster day program in each council district spread over several week period before the end of the year. To great excitement, Republic Services responded that they would support this effort at no cost to the city. So I wanted to propose that we direct staff to coordinate with Republic Services to implement a dumpster day program in each district and to bring back a related report to council at the July 13th council meeting, potentially incorporating a neighborhood cleanup in the area in which the dumpster day will be implemented in each district. And this is at the request of several residents who were interested in having sort of like a big trash dumpster day where they could leave larger items that normally can't be picked up during the regular service.
I think it's a great idea. I think, so would this be like we would pick an area in our district and there would be a large scale dumpster left in that specific area and then people could could use it.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see, and if we can pick an area where we could, walk around the neighborhood and pick up trash. I know that there's several organizations that have reached out to me wanting to do cleanups, and we don't have them, so I was like, this could be a great way to combine both. So we're picking up trash, and folks can drive up and dump their big trash. And so directing city staff to kind of implement that and get back to us, maybe ask us each where we think that would be best held in our districts.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think since it might be something held over consecutive weekends or more often than just once, maybe if the Republic is able to pick that dumpster up within that, before leaving it there overnight, because if it can't be locked overnight, that can cause some issue with people breaking into it. And I've seen that happen before, where a dumpster isn't locked overnight, and then there's people unfortunately going through it and causing kind of the opposite of what the point is. So I think that would just be something to clarify with Republic. But otherwise, I think it's a great idea and a benefit to the community for sure.
Go ahead, Fat.
Yeah, well, a question for Mayor Pro Tem. When I first heard of it, I think it's a good idea, but I would like to clarify a few things before I can, chime in and decide whether I should vote yes or nay. Or maybe this is just a discussion anyway. My first reaction is this is really great. Now, a lot of times when I have bulky item, I know I can already have 3 times a year. So I usually do not need the bulky items. But this would be great in the sense, in things such as sometimes I have other cleanup, which is not a bulky item, but a lot of miscellaneous things that add up to a big one. And it costs a lot of money to get rid of them. It could be, I have a big tree chunk that it doesn't fit into the bulky item. So this would be really helpful. My other question is that I want to clarify is what do you mean by bulky item? Does that mean I can only throw in a big couch or something else? Obviously not electronic item, right? But let's say I clean up my yard and I have so much branch that normally doesn't fit into the brown box, and I want to try to get rid of them quickly. Can I throw it into this dumpster?
I don't know the answer to that, so hopefully, Assistant City Manager Maria Stipe can take that back to our public services, and whether they have a separate bin for green, so they know that it has to be separated out anyway. So maybe we can ask that question to see if they can accommodate that.
Sure. That was something, but generally I like your suggestion, but I just want to clarify that, and hopefully by then you have the answer for all of these little things. Secondly is I want to make sure that that it is really free, right? So staff have reported that Republic indicate that there is at no cost to the city. But I also heard that this is coming out of the community donation funding, and I don't know whether it's true or not. But if we tap into the existing funding for community charity projects such as Boy and Girl Club or Girl Foundation, then I might have a second thought, because if we already have bulky item 3 times a year, and if this is costing their budget to the other groups, then we might want, I'm not saying even that I would vote no or yes, but I would say we want to talk to them to see how much impact would that be to other organizations that used to receive that fund. Can you talk to them and find out?
Yeah, from my interpretation, I don't believe that that's the case, but I believe that the direction is for city staff to bring back a plan and sort of a more in-depth report about that for us on the July 13th meeting. So if that could be incorporated in the conversation with Republic Services, that would be appreciated.
Yeah. And then lastly, can staff also give us some idea? Hopefully this doesn't cost you guys a lot of effort, hours to administer this.
No, I wouldn't expect for it to take a lot of staff time to administer, and a lot of these questions that have been raised, I think, will be addressed in the report that we bring back. So I do know from speaking with Republic that they have agreed that they can provide up to 12 roll-off dumpsters, up to 2 per district, and they can manage that within their existing budget allocation. I think that they have, due to COVID, they have not been able to support all of the community programming that they normally would. And so this is an opportunity to support the community and support the individual districts. And I think these events can be tailored likely to each individual district and the needs, and kind of work individually with the council members. So, but we can answer the questions with regard to bulky items, regular trash items, that kind of stuff when we bring a report back at the July 13th meeting.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. Tuha.
Oh, just want to say thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for bringing this up. This is a great idea, because I know that several cities has been implement this one annually and very successful. And I can give example, San Jose. Up there, they've been doing that almost annually, and then by districts. And it's very successful. A lot of constituents has participated and brought out the big bulk items. As well, they do have volunteers as well to help on clean up the street. Like the volunteer driving around the street, pick up the bulk item, and then dump it in the big bin. So that's a good idea. Then I look forward to see more details of what the list, what we're going to categorize, and obviously won't be any cost associated. Thank you.
I think this is really cool. So I've seen this before with private property owners that have offered this to tenants or residents or whatnot. We also did something similar as part of our NIC committee's Neighborhood Improvement Day on Palma Vista before with Nate Robbins and police, and when we did the mural and planted trees, but we also brought big 40-yard dumpsters and encouraged the residents in that neighborhood to kind of do some spring cleaning and clear things out. I think it's intended to, and it would be promoted for spring cleaning and sort of anti-hoarding type thing, not so much couches, which could be picked up as bulk items, or yard work or concrete or demolition. It's more just clear out your garage and dump, stuff like that, encouraging people to do that. And it's great if we can promote, private communities and properties to kind of follow suit, maybe offer these types of programs as well. So it's a great way to just show we care and sort of clean up the city a little bit. So I think it's cool.
One follow-up question, Mayor?
Sure.
Just another thing that just come across my mind. I know, and maybe it's old, information no longer relevant, but if I remember, the resident have a different, services agreement. Like for single residential, they can call for bulky item for up to 3 times a year, or 3 items a year, I'm not sure. But apartment doesn't have that. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
So this program might be even another better idea. I don't know, but that would be people in apartment. Can they utilize this, or we can't?
Multifamily of more than 3 units are considered a commercial account, and they already have the big bins, that big 3-yard bins in their facilities.
Yeah, but sometimes that the bin is not really suitable for bulky item, and a lot of times those owners, they only have enough for regular daily trash. So a lot of times I saw bulky items sitting out on the sidewalk and this and that. Yeah. And because they cannot call for free bulky item pickup, they just put it out on the street. So I think, I don't know about the legal ramification, but if we can help them with that, I think Kim's idea might be a good idea for that kind of situation.
Yeah, I think that these neighborhood cleanups, that's why they were popular, because they're mostly popular with apartment dwellers, because they normally don't have bulky item pickup.
So we'll stop and you look into the legality
It's actually in the franchise agreement. The bulky item program is part of the franchise agreement, so it's something that we can look into if we want to amend the agreement, or wait until we do the next request for proposals for a new solid waste franchise contract.
just look into it as this thing coming back to the council. Maybe you can, shed some light on it. If we can do it, it's great. If you think it's not, easy for us to do it, that's a reality that we have to live with, and we have to wait until next.
It's reopening negotiations on a major contract.
I see. All right.
Councilman, one of the things we'll have to think about is, there's not only bulky items, there's electronic waste drop-off. We'll have to be careful. You can't dump hazardous waste in there. You can't throw your paint cans in there, that sort of thing. And these dumpsters will fill up very fast. So it'll be some combination of monitoring too, so that when the dumpsters get full, if nobody's there monitoring, people will just come by and throw stuff right in the side of it and that sort of thing. So we're going to have to be prepared when they do get full to have them hauled off right away, so we can do that too. So I think we'll look into all that stuff and try to figure out the best way. I would anticipate us having lots of conversations with you guys. You know your districts well, and where might be some good opportunities to do this, and we don't have to do them all on the exact same weekend. We could stagger it. We can do some different things.
Well, I think certainly it's a good idea. There is some, complexity that need to be identified and work out. But I think it's generally it's a good idea, and I think we should at least considering it.
Yeah, I think this came to fruition aside from residents requesting that, 3 times a year for bulky items isn't enough for them as they're doing spring cleaning or just, making changes to their home, but also just driving around and noticing, per Councilmember Bowie's point, that some apartment complexes don't accommodate that. And so when folks are moving out, I know when I was moving out of my apartment, I was trying to figure out what to do with my big bulky trash. Luckily, I have a parent who's a resident of mine as well and can do it for me, so I did that. But other residents don't have that option, so I figured we'd be able to have one in each district over different weekends and make huge efforts to publicize that to the specific district, and probably every district as they're coming along, because maybe you missed it and you didn't have anything at the time, but a few weeks later, there's one in District 2, and now all of a sudden you have something to drop off. And then I thought maybe having it at a park, or maybe working with Garden Grove Unified to have it at school, so it's like a drive-through, and coordinating some sort of cleanup. As I mentioned, there's other organizations that have asked me about cleanups in our city. I know the Carpenters Union, who build our beautiful large big chairs out on the library park, had asked me multiple times about cleanups or other volunteer opportunities in Garden Grove. So this is a perfect time to maybe include them. And I know most of them have really large pickup trucks. So, maybe they'll volunteer to help drive around and pick up some bulky items. But either way, I think this is a great opportunity. I know other cities in Orange County have this established, and they do it more frequently than just once a year per area. They do it multiple times a quarter and include a cleanup. So just hoping to replicate something like this in the city of Garden Grove, because driving around, you do see weird stuff being thrown out and just left out on the street. So hopefully part of beautification and just keeping this consistent for the future. So I'll make the motion to request that staff bring back a report on the July 13th meeting.
A second.
Great. Call to vote.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
And Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Alrighty. 8D, as requested by Councilmember Bowie.
Okay. Well, Mayor and colleagues, I would like to request a resolution to, recognize the accomplishment of Cindy Tran. She is the past as well as current member of the Board of Appeal Commission, I believe. It's current this year, right, Mayor Jones? She is. And she has been awarded recently the Outstanding Award for Community Services Award by the Federal Executive Board. I verified this award from her commanding officer via the email. And I also heard that in 2020, she received the Individual Outstanding Leadership Award as well. Now, Mrs. Tran is a tireless volunteer for our community. For the last few years, every year she purchases and put together about 500 gifts for students during Christmas time for students in our city in Garden Grove, such as the St. Columban, Sunnyside, Ernest Lawrence, Louis Ziand, Brookhurst Elementary, Stanford, Gilbert Elementary, you name it. And I've been at her house one time to help her, grabbing all of those gifts for the student. 500 gifts is not a easy job to grab them. She also have donated $500 each year for the last 2 years as scholarship for Garden Grove students who going to the Rosary Academy. And always during Strawberry Festival for the past many years, she support and donate to the school band. She also donate to various church and activities such as volunteer almost every year for the last 10 years for Thanksgiving lunch for the homeless at various churches in Garden Grove. She joined the Tet Parade for the last few years in the community, and last year, not last year, but the years before, because last year, because of COVID, there was no Tet Parade. But she participated in the parade in Westminster, in Garden Grove for many, many years. Not only that, she also provides financial support for students at the St. Columban Band to participate in the Tet Parade. And when the COVID just started, she purchases clothes and sew them and making masks so that she can hand out to health care, military, and the homeless people. She donated snacks and masks to local nursing home, including the Garden Grove Convalescent Hospital. And she often come to this hospital to sing and play piano and entertain the seniors at this nursing home. So see them so many, and I thought this is why I hope that the mayor and my colleague would approve the resolution of commendation for her. The community, the Vietnamese community is throwing a banquet this coming Sunday to congratulate and share the joys with her. And so I hope, I thought maybe with a resolution, she is a long-time Garden Grove resident. With a resolution, I think that would send the message that we want to encourage people to volunteer and donate for charity causes. The resolution, I think you already have read them. I don't know if we need to read them again, but if we do, I would, let me know, and I would ask Terry, maybe can read it for you.
I don't think we actually need to read the whole resolution, right? Only if it was an ordinance, you need to read the title of an ordinance, but for a resolution, it's not like we actually need to read.
Correct. This is a resolution of commendation.
Okay.
So I have some concerns. Obviously, thankful to Cindy, Ms. Chan, and her efforts for community service. I did hesitate a little bit while reading the resolution itself because it identified being awarded by the federal government, but didn't clearly state who was actually giving her the award and for what. And after some research, I did find her 2020 award, but I was unable to find her name listed for the 2021 award. And for 2020, it was a nonprofit that gave her the award, specific to the Asian community or the API community for the federal workers. And then for the 2021, I was unable to find the specific award that she was supposedly given. So I'm a little hesitant to do a resolution of commendation. I think that a certificate of recognition is appropriate, given that the last, I think, 6 commendations that we've given have been to, the hospitals during COVID and to former employees that retired after working for the city for probably over 10, 15 years. So I'm just a little hesitant because of the fact that these awards are more so given to her from her work. So it's like Employee of the Year. I don't know that that merits a commendation, but definitely supportive of a certificate of recognition.
But I have the email from her commanders, Colonel Mark Delaurie, announcing to their, through their department that she was awarded the award as a Greater LA Federal by LA Federal Executive Board Community Services Award winner. So I'm very certain that a colonel in the Navy wouldn't just make this up. I think she is actually awarded the 2021 award as she had said. The involvement that she was in, and I think Mayor Jones might also know a little bit about it, it involved a lot of diversity outside of her normal duties. So she is volunteer a lot. She is a 15 years or so resident of Garden Grove, and she have volunteered so much for so many organizations in our city, not just outside, but in cities such as St. Columbus. She donated a lot of money. She's not listed in here, but I knew she have donated thousands and thousands of dollars each year for various organizations. And I think with that, and she's not just doing it for years or two. It's many, many years of doing so for the community. And I think with that, I hope you would consider a resolution of commendation. A certificate, I could just request the city on my own without having to come to the city council. We, in the past, have given resolution commendation for someone who just win a tournament. I don't see why we wouldn't do something similar for someone who have given so much for our communities in our city. So I don't know. I don't think I need to take too much of your time. But if anyone would second my request, then I think I hope that we could do something for this special person.
Maria, can I just get some clarification from you? I know we do have some criteria to differentiate between the certificate of recognitions, community spotlight, but we don't have if we do or we don't, on the criteria for resolutions.
That's correct. We have guidelines for the issuance of certificates of recognition, so certainly this would fall within that criteria. We also have protocol and guidelines for our community spotlight, which also includes resolutions. So with a community spotlight, we typically will do a certificate of recognition along with like a kind of crystal award or something like that, and presentation to the council. But we do from time to time do resolutions of commendation for ceremonial purposes and so forth. And so we do not have specific criteria that's called out for that. So we have issued resolutions of commendation for various subject matter in the past. And so it's really up to the council to make this decision at this point. We do not have a formal hard and fast city council policy.
Yeah, I really want to emphasize the fact that in the past, we have handed out the resolution of commendation for someone who won a pageant, someone who win a tournament. So I don't see how this is, so much different than that. This is.
I think just for the sake of the meeting this evening, I probably didn't do my due diligence in necessarily asking during agenda review the difference between the two. I think I just sort of thought this was, honoring somebody for just the work they did in the community and didn't really decipher the difference between the two. I think moving forward, obviously, we want to be mindful of and don't want to set a precedent that these are given out to just anybody for any certain things. But for the sake of tonight and for what it is, I'll give you a second on your motion.
Thank you.
I think it's already draft the resolutions, and for one thing, if we're moving forward with this, I think I'm going to ask Maria and the staff, maybe we can work on the guidelines so it's easy for us to make decisions of which one, who going to fit into which category for the resolutions as we're moving forward. Because sometimes it's really make it precedent and then everybody volunteers. I know a lot of long list of candidates who've been volunteered going above and beyond. And they didn't get recognized just because nobody know to nominate them. But at the same time, a resolution is something that as a lifetime achievement accomplishment.
But sometimes we just, in the past, we give a lot of resolution of commendation to someone who just win a basketball tournament. So what difference would that be?
Just to back up that, I did want to request that we bring back a policy that includes criteria and guidelines for all three, because I think there should be like a level of who should get what. If, certificate of recognition, any one of us could ask for that. Doesn't necessarily have to go to council for approval. And then when we want to do a community spotlight, I think that's like beefing it up a little bit more, because they get, a little bring family and friends to share in the moment of them getting that certificate of recognition. And then I think even the level above that should be the resolution of commendation. I think for this particular item, I know there's a motion in a second, so I won't continue on, but I would just say that I'd be willing to vote yes for it if there's changes to the resolution that include the specific award year and who gave it to her, because again, I looked it up. She did get the 2020 from the FAPAC, which is the Federal Association something PAC for the API who work for the federal government. And then for 2021, I was unable to locate her name on the list from the Federal Executive Board. So saying in the resolution that she was recognized by the federal government is makes it sound like this really huge big deal. And again, she was winning the award through work. Great, kudos to her for it, but I don't know that it warrants a commendation. In my opinion, I think in my last, almost 5 years of being elected, I think the commendations that I've approved have been for, the last couple of years have been for COVID. So it was Cal Optima Pace, it was the hospitals, and essential workers. And then I think we had one for the gentleman who retired from the tourism district, who dedicated a lot of time in then building that committee. So to me, warranted that. For this, I don't necessarily believe that it warrants a commendation. But if that language is adjusted in the resolution to specifically state who gave her the award and when she got it, so that way, when I look it up, I'm not finding her, then I'd be willing to vote yes. Because again, for 2021, I was unable to verify that she actually received the award, and I contacted several offices to try and find out if she in fact received this award and was unable to find it. So just differentiating the fact that she did not receive this award from the federal government, she received it from a nonprofit PAC, and then the one for 2021, I can't confirm that she actually won the award. So just so long as that language is incorporated, fine, but then moving forward, I would like to see a policy brought back so that we don't have these types of conversations, because it's definitely not to diminish the work of Cindy Tran. I want there to be a clear process moving forward.
Thank you. Tuha wants to speak, but to Mayor Pro Tem's point, Councilmember Bowie, are you amenable to her proposed change in the wording in the motion?
Not at all, but if we think we need to change it a little bit, that will be fine. But I want to reassure that I have talked to her commanders, Colonel Mark DeLaurie, and I do have the email that he sent congratulating her staff, which is Cindy, who is a supervisor working under his wing. Commander, I have the email in here. Commander Mark Delory sent it out to her and congratulate her for Mrs. at her selection for as the Greater LA Federal Executive Board Community Services Award winner. So I'm sure that is correct. Now, whether you think it is worthy or not, it's subjective to each person's perspective. But she does have that award, 2021.
And I think all she's asking to do is just specify that it's the Greater LA Services Federal Board or whatever, as opposed to the federal government.
Oh, yes,
giving her
yes,
an
yes,
award.
yes.
I think
Yeah,
she's just trying to
we can do
specify
that.
so
Yes.
it doesn't misstate that as if the White House is bringing, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I have no
Sounds like
no
it's
issue
a
with that.
nonprofit board in LA or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right?
Just,
Okay, Tuha.
I agree with that. We just need some verbiage to be more detailed and specific to highlight the person accomplishment, so that the resolution not get downgraded, that anybody can get the resolutions easily. And I know Cindy personally. She's a great person. She volunteers a lot, and I just want to highlight her accomplishment and her contribution to the community. Thank you for that, and I definitely, I support this. But as I say, moving forward, we should have some guideline or policy that would be able to easy to justify for the person's accomplishments or receiving the resolution as well.
I agree with that too. I think a clear guideline would make it easy for us, so that when someone would like to nominate someone for resolution recommendation, we could just check it out, say blah blah blah, meet the minimum requirement, and then it makes it easier for us. Agree.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we call a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Teacher Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie.
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
Yes.
And Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. Matters, Tuha?
No, I don't have anything good.
Pat? Anything else? Stephanie? Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
None, but I just want to clarify, do we need to take action for that policy to come back, or y'all will bring it back?
Sorry, we can bring it back. To bring back a policy that was requested, we can bring it back.
Right, I was just asking if we need a formal vote to bring back the policy, because we had issues with process a couple meetings ago, so I said I would be the stickler for the rules, so if we need to take action, I'm willing to make the motion now.
Yeah, the process is if the council wants staff to bring it back as an action item, we do need a motion and a
Then I will
vote.
make a motion for staff to bring back a policy that includes criteria and guidelines for community spotlight, certificate of recognition, and resolutions of commendation.
I second to that.
Do we need to do that again then?
Yeah.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie.
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein.
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. City Manager Scott Stiles?
No items, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. General Counsel, do we have any need for closed session or anything to report?
No, nothing.
Thank you all. We stand adjourned. Have a good evening.